striving for the luxury liner. Volume 16 Chapter 1 220 Chapter 1 Another Discovery. The dungeon rejected us. If Ilma-san's hunch was right, it was understandable in some ways, but it was still a dungeon, and I wanted it to welcome us with a big heart. Well, this dungeon seems to have a very bad character, so I guess we can't expect a big heart from it. Wataru. Next, please translate this. Yes, let's see. I am currently working alone with Ilma-san, deciphering some uninteresting ancient writing. It has been 5 days since we stopped attacking the dungeon. I have asked the chief of the hill village to send someone to the silent dungeon, and we are waiting at sea, a short distance from the island, to let the dungeon guard down. There's a possibility that the dungeon will get out of control once we leave the island, and even if it doesn't, the restrictions may be lifted when we leave the island. It would be inconvenient if such a thing happened when we were far from the island, so we decided to wait a while, just in case. We also thought about the safety of the Dark Elves. I asked Princess Anne-Marie to borrow the sea god's sacred treasure to evacuate the Dark Elves in case of an emergency. Even if the dungeon got out of control, it would be difficult to harm the mermaids with the sea god's sacred treasure if they fled to the sea. They also sent mermaids to guard the dungeon, and I think we are probably in a good position to handle almost anything that might happen. By the way, as Felicia predicted, the guard job has become so popular that it has become untenable, so they are now drawing lots to decide who will be on guard. I honestly don't know if that's okay. I was a little worried, but I was told that most of the Dark Elves are serious and that the village chief left out careless types or those who might make a mistake, so it was fine. My biggest concern is the Hot Springs village, but when the guard signaled an emergency, we made sure they fled to the sea on the other side of the dungeon. The mountains would be in between, and if they ran to the sea, the mermaids would evacuate them, so they should be fine there as well. After all the arrangements were made, I thought I would continue my vacation. But the dungeon attack was unwillingly interrupted. Even though everything is fine for now, we still need to be vigilant about the dungeon, and as expected, it is not a vacation atmosphere where we can play casually and without thinking. It was so frustrating that the banana boats were no longer available, but I gave up on the idea that it could not be helped. Then, the gospel came to me. Wataru, since we have some time left, I want you to help me as you promised. Is that okay? Ilma-san asked me to help her in a sexy way. Of course, I replied with a big of course. And I've been doing it ever since, but unfortunately, I haven't had the slightest bit of luck with the sexy turn of events. Ins and Rimu are playing on the chateau because they are bored, and Felicia is busy going back and forth to the Dark Elf Island and guarding it. Alessia-san and the others are with us for training and meals, but otherwise, we are separated, so we are alone for quite a while. It's a situation where something could happen, but Ilma-san's side as a researcher also comes out strongly, and although she usually teases me a bit, she doesn't even do that. It's a very healthy studying situation. I prefer to study in an unhealthy way, but life is not always what it seems. I'm trying my best to translate in order to win Ilma-san's favor, but I wish I could at least have a lucky scene. I continue to translate while thinking about such nonsense. I can afford to think about such nonsense, but it's a bit tedious because all I have to do is read the words and transcribe them with my language comprehension. But then again, language comprehension is really a cheat, isn't it? I used to use it as a convenience because I didn't need an interpreter, but if it's left as written text, I can probably understand everything. It's definitely a great skill to be able to cheat on knowledge. But it's subtle when I'm the one who has that great skill. It's not that I don't find the term ancient knowledge romantic, but I don't want to study it as hard as Ilma-san does. If I didn't have any other power, I would have tried to get a bite out of it by using my understanding of the language, but there's the scam of ship summoning, which is full of entertainment, so I'm in a perfect treasure trove. It's a story that serious researchers would stab me in the back if they knew about it. Let's keep it a secret. Wow, there's a continent to the west, isn't there? Ilma-san, what kind of place is that? When I translated the text Ilma-san asked me to translate, I found a description that there is a continent to the west. The southern continent is at war and dangerous, but when this continent is peaceful, we can travel there. After all, my skill is a cheat ship summoning. If the place I'm going to is peaceful, I can have a comfortable sightseeing trip. Elegant sightseeing with beautiful women. Foo-foo, my dreams are expanding. Huh? Not too different from the current situation, You say? It's like we usually travel together. Wataru. What did you just say? Ilma-san looks at me with a surprised expression on her face. Does that mean that the Western continent is unrecognized? That's interesting information, but now another opportunity has arisen. It's not as big as the unfamiliar ceiling, but it's a conversation I'd like to try at least once. No, before that. This is a chance to say, what kind of place is it? Come on, Ilma-san. Give me the reaction I want. No, not that. Before that, Wataru, what did you say before that? Ilma-san came at me with all her might. I was happy to be approached by a beautiful woman, but her reaction was more intense than I had expected, and I was starting to get a little scared. I guess someone who is good at teasing can continue to do so. But I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, so I'm going to give up early. My inexperience will only make me less likable if I get carried away. Before that, I'm happy enough to hear the following. There's a continent to the west, isn't there? Is that true? Ilma-san confirms if this is true with a worried but somewhat excited look on her face. She is usually an extremely sexy and beautiful woman, but right now, she is kind of cute. That's something. I don't know if it's true, but that's what it says. Even though language comprehension is a cheat skill, it is actually impossible to determine the authenticity of information. I mean, if I could do that, it would be a godlike skill that would go beyond a cheat. What about location? It's a transaction record, so it doesn't say anything about the detailed location. It just says the Western continent. I'm deciphering the documents we got from the Duke's castle, but there are a lot of trade-related documents because he had immense power over the sea by using the sea god's sacred treasure. Still, this is the first time that information about other continents has appeared. So trade with other continents must have been difficult even in the past. It seems like it would be easy to go to other continents by using the sea god's sacred treasure, but I don't think a person in his position as a duke would go casually, and lending the sea god's sacred treasure might have helped, but I wouldn't lend the source of my power to someone else, would I? I didn't make the best use of my language comprehension trick either, but it seems that the Duke's family didn't make the best use of the sea god's sacred treasure either. I see. But other sources might have more details about the location. Wataru, let's do our best. For a moment, Ilma-san seemed depressed, but then she seemed to regain her composure and handed me a lot of documents. She wants me to do my best with the translation. Well, I'm also interested in other continents, and if I translate, I can increase Ilma-san's good impression of me. She's sexy and likes to tease people, but she also has a loyal side, so I can expect a reward for her cooperation. Let's put my best foot forward here and get Ilma-san to praise me for my efforts. But all I have to do is read and write. But on the other hand, information about the other continents is also missing. The existence of the southern continent is known. So why is so much information about the Western continent missing? Knowledge can be passed on by word of mouth, although it may lack precision. It would not be surprising if there was some information about the Western continent somewhere. Well, maybe it's because it was common knowledge. What do you mean? If it was common knowledge, it would not be surprising if there were many traces of it. Because it was common knowledge, no one left it behind, and the Duke was destroyed when the Demon King went on a rampage. I don't think they had time to write down the common knowledge. Besides, the civilization died several times between that era and this era, so there must have been a breakdown of information there as well. I see. This world, there are too many random civilizations dying. In addition, there is a high possibility that the creator god of this world is involved in the destruction of this civilization, which is indescribable. I remember hearing from the god of light Sama that the Demon King also went on a rampage with the skills given to him by the creator god Sama. I think that ship summoning is also an unfashionable cheat, but creator god Sama is aware that it is a modest skill considering its impact on the world, and he was more generous in the past. A skill that makes ship summoning seem modest. That will be the cause of the downfall of civilization. Even if the person who is given the skill is a good person, if they have such immense power, they will get involved in all sorts of things. As a result, things would have happened that would have brought chaos to society. Even good people are subtle, but if they casually gave superpowered skills to bad people or people like me who are easily influenced by the way things are done, wow, that would have been terrifying. Since I had the ship summoning, I acted cautiously, timidly cautious at first. I was so cautious that the gods dismissed me as boring, and the creator god Sama lectured me. But if I had been given the skills of a system that allowed me to be an unmatched warrior, I don't think I would have gone on a rampage. But I'm sure I would have been on a roll. Thanks to creator god Sama, who learned to control himself. Oh, but wouldn't there have been a disconnect of information if you had just asked God a bunch of questions? We're not Wataru, and we can't just ask God questions like that. Stop talking nonsense and move your hands. A great discovery is just around the corner. I had thought that the hurdles for God would be a little lower because of the convenient system of God of Commerce Sama contracts. But it seems that God is a feared and respected being after all. Dark elves and mermaids also have great respect for the goddess of the forest Sama and the sea god Sama, don't they? As someone who knows the reality of God, it's not that subtle, but I guess those who don't know wouldn't think of listening to what I have to say. Ilma-san, don't you think it would be a solution if I talked to the gods? I think I could ask them right now if I wanted to, right? Wataru. Even if you did, would you enjoy it? I see. That makes sense. In short, it's like a spoiler in a mystery novel. When you read a novel, you think and reason along with the main character. That's why you get more pleasure when you get it right, more amazement when you get a twist, and more anger when you find out the trick is terrible. In other words, it's a hobby. Discovering a new continent as a hobby. That's interesting. I'm still looking for a reward, but I'm going to try harder. And then I'll be smug like, oh no, I was just looking through the literature and I discovered a new continent, ha 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 ha. I don't know at whom I'm laughing, though. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 2 320 Chapter 2, I can't help but be envious. But, while I was waiting in the dungeon, I decided to help Ilma-san with her sexy request right away, and while I was working hard on the translation, I found a description of a western continent. Apparently, the information about the western continent was disconnected, and the bewitching Ilma-san was adorably excited. It's an eye-opener. Wow, this guy pisses me off. Working on the translation, looking for descriptions of the western continent. After reading about half of the material, I found several descriptions of the western continent but no detailed locations or information about the continent. Ilma-san told me that we could infer some information about the land from the descriptions of the trade goods, so it was not a total waste of time, but I was getting bored. In the middle of all this, I found a book, or rather the diary of the head of the Duke's family. It is not in good taste to steal and read other people's diaries, but in the case of old diaries, there is no problem because they are historical documents. In Japan, people have to decipher diaries from the Heian or Sengoku periods to study the culture of those periods, and that is also for research, right? I was so excited to read other people's diaries that I felt a little guilty, but I was able to cover it up under the guise of research, and then I was so disgusted by the immorality of reading someone else's diary. Who the hell is the guy, you ask? Yeah, he is the head of the Duke's family. It's a diary, so there's no point in exaggerating, and he probably doesn't even want to brag about it. This means that what is written in this diary is nothing special and is just an everyday life for the head of the family. Surrounded by many beautiful women, he enjoys the luxury of eating and drinking. The food brought from where was a delicacy. He took a beautiful woman as his concubine. He held a great feast with the nobles. In his spare time, he gathers his wife and concubines and does mufafu things with them. And many other descriptions of pleasure. Normally, even a great nobleman should have his own troubles, but this duke who has established absolute power is living a stress-free, fun-filled life. Is this his daily life? I envy him. Wataru, you're acting suspiciously. Have you found out anything? Oh, no, I haven't found anything of particular importance. I was attracted to the duke's exquisite handwriting, even though it was a diary, and I was disgusted. As expected, I'm afraid to explain the contents to Ilma-san, so I'll just translate it and keep the contents under wraps. It's almost an erotic novel, you know. Yes, I know it's a lot of work, but I'm counting on you, Wataru, so please do your best. Why yes, I will do my best. Anyway, let's read this erotic novel, or rather a diary, to the end so that I don't act suspicious. The contents have become a bit shady. I see. It seems that the Demon King began his rampage at the time of the head of this family. At first, there were some words about how there was plenty of time because of the sea god's sacred treasure, but gradually, more and more troublesome and serious situations were written. Even though the sea god's sacred treasure exists, It is a treasure that was taken from the mermaids. The first generation that took it from them was able to use it well, but his descendants were unable to utilize the power of the sacred treasure. Even so, they were at the peak of their strength with their mighty power, but this time, they were dealing with a demon king. It seems that a sacred treasure that can only be used half-heartedly is not enough. At first, I thought that he was the descendant of the human who took the precious sacred treasure from the mermaid, but as the dark sentences continued, I began to feel sorry for him. Although this duke is doing many enviable things, he seems to have a sense of responsibility as a duke and is struggling with how to protect his people and subordinates. He was apparently not a bad guy. I read on, hoping that he could protect them safely, but the situation only worsened. This is only natural when you think about it, because the castle, the sea god's sacred treasure, the treasures, and this diary had all sunk into the sea. If things had gone well, the castle would still be but the treasures and the sacred treasure would have been taken out of the castle. The fact that it didn't mean that. Duke, you did your best. At first I thought he was someone I didn't like, but he did his duty admirably. Yes, you did your duty, so rest in peace. The Duke continued to do what he could despite his desperate situation, and he took the people and families of his territory aboard his own ships and fled to the western continent. He gave them food and money so that they would have as little trouble there as possible, and he himself continued to resist the Demon King with his soldiers. At the last moment, the Duke was ready to flee to the western continent with his soldiers, but this diary was suddenly interrupted, and the castle was left with treasures and sacred treasures. A sudden interruption at a time when there still seemed to be some room for destruction. Perhaps they were ambushed by the Demon King, and the entire castle sank into the sea with no time to escape. Wataru. Hey, Wataru. Ilma-san, what's wrong? What's wrong? Here, wipe your face. Your face is covered with tears and snot. I was so emotionally involved that my ear gland seemed to have collapsed. I wiped my face with the handkerchief that Ilma-san gave me, and it got soaked in no time. How much did I cry? So, Wataru. There was something in that book that would make Wataru so much. What was it about? Would you listen to it? Ilma-san, are you going to ask me that? Then I will let you hear it. The life of a great man. Hey, Wataru. I think the Duke is great too. I wasn't sure about him at first, but I think he did his duty admirably. Yes, that's right. I really didn't want to talk about the sensual novel part of the first half, but I dared to talk about it. The elegant life of the first half. Knowing that part of the story, the Duke's way of life would shine through in the second half of the novel. In fact, Ilma-san even recognized the Duke and was a little tearful. The way of life of a man who indulged in pleasure in times of peace but risked his life to protect his people and family when the time came. I even admire him. So, Wataru, there is something that bothers me. What is it? Please ask me anything. I will explain it to you as many times as you want so that you can understand it well. If I'm not mistaken, in the scene where the people choose their escape routes, were the detailed descriptions of the routes to the western continent, and how many different routes there were, It was written. Wasn't it? Yes, it was definitely written. I explained to her with admiration how many different patterns had been considered for the future of the people. I was so fascinated by the Duke's life that I had completely forgotten my original purpose. Yes, I had researched the detailed location of the western continent. I had already achieved my goal. *****. In the documents that Wataru translated for me, we found a description of the existence and location of the continent to the west. The journey takes about 2 months each way. It's farther than the southern continent, but Wataru's ship will get there a little faster, so it should be possible to explore it. A summoned ship doesn't have to worry about monsters, so it won't slow down, and there's no need to worry about water or food. In addition, we can use the autopilot on the way back. Compared to the ancient magic ship that benefited from the sea god's sacred treasure, this one should have better conditions, so there shouldn't be any problems. And Alessia-san and the others understand that. It was as if it had already been decided. In fact, the faces of Alessia-san and the others glowed with curiosity. This is not a newly discovered continent, but an unknown continent where relations and information were lost in ancient times. You can't call yourself an adventurer if you're not excited about such new discovery. Wataru, we're going on an adventure to the western continent. Lend me your strength. Of course. Or rather, I wanted to go even if Alessia-san and the others didn't. Then let's go. Alessia, calm down. We can't leave right away because of the dungeon. Besides, Wataru, you have the Beastman village to think about. Are you sure you want to leave this continent for months? I was about to say, okay, let's go, but Dorothea-san's matter-of-fact comment reminded me of the reality of the situation. Now that I think about it, I have a lot of problems to deal with. There's nothing we can do about the dungeon, so we'll just have to wait and see how things go for a while, and if there are no sudden changes, we'll consider it a non-issue. I don't think it will be too bad as long as the watch continues. Ilma-san shared her opinion on the dungeon. It is true that as long as the land is not cleared, it is probably safe to keep an eye on it. So, the Beastman village, huh? I was thinking of going there at some point, but if I went to the Aquamarine Kingdom now, I would be in for a hell of a lot of paperwork, so it would be better to wait a little longer and see what happens. It wouldn't be so strange because of the contract with the god of commerce Sama, and I don't want to disrupt this situation where I can throw the busiest part of the early construction of the village. Even if I cannot escape the hell of paperwork, the severity of the hell during the busiest period is different from the hell during the period when things have settled down somewhat. This is a situation that requires careful judgment. However, if we are not careful, it might take us half a year or a year to find a new continent. Leaving the Beastman village unattended for such a long time is also tricky. Oh, and if the journey is going to be that long, it would be better to finish entertaining Creator God Sama. The gods will be very interested in the new luxury liner, and if it is left unattended, it could be a big problem. It is mainly due to the selfishness of Creator God Sama. Actually, we can't leave right now, can we? Two people shouted in sadness at my decision. One is Alessia-san. The other is Ins. Both are passionate gamblers and curious. Maybe they are more alike than I thought. No, Alessia-san is the leader of an A-ranked party of adventurers, and it would be rude to lump her in with Ins, who sold herself because of gambling. Master, why are you looking at me with such sad eyes? It's somehow very insulting. It's nothing. Anyway, our departure is still a few months away. We want to trade anyway, and Ilma-san, please help me figure out the trade goods from the data. I will consult with Camille-san and the others later. The rest of you, please follow Ilma-san's lead and make preparations for the Western continent. Oh, then I would like to learn the language from Wataru. It would be hard to ask Wataru to translate everything over there, wouldn't it? I think I can manage if I read it aloud, but won't the language over the change just like the language over here? It is impossible for Creator God Sama's damage to be limited to this continent alone. Since it is Creator God Sama, he must spread the damage evenly. That's fine with me, because it will help me decipher the data. If that's the case, I don't mind either. I'm not expecting a very sexy development from the latest trend, but I'm not so desiccated that I would miss some alone time with a beautiful woman. Well, the adventure has been postponed, but there's nothing wrong with having fun first. Let's look forward to the new continent and get ready to enjoy it without any problems. But, if possible, I'd like to get away from the paperwork hell. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 3, 420. Chapter 3, Wataru's True Intentions. While searching for descriptions of the Western continent, I discovered the diary of the head of the Duke's family. Jealous of its enviable and outrageous contents, I read on and gradually became drawn into the Duke's life and even began to admire him. Well, I was so engrossed that I made the mistake of not going through the area I had originally intended to see, the Western continent, but I found it in the end, so there was no problem. This happened. Oh, my businessman blood is tingling even though I'm old. I am old, but my level has increased, my life expectancy is longer, and I have more energy and stamina. Can I go? It's wonderful. This is a discovery that will go down in history, Wataru-san. The astonished voices of Camille-san, Moro-san, and Donatella-san echoed in the captain's quarters of the castle. Their wonderful reactions made me very proud to be involved in this discovery. After deciphering the Duke's diary, we began preparing for our adventure to the Western continent with a look at the dungeon. I taught the languages to Ilma-san, Dorothea-san, Marina-san, and Claretta-san, who occasionally joined the study group, at least for simple daily conversation. The amount of alone time with Ilma-san was reduced due to the participation of other members, but an unexpected turn of events occurred here. To my surprise, Ilma-san is much sexier when other people are around, and she teases me in a slightly sexy way. It seems that Ilma-san is the type of person who gets more excited when other people are looking at her. That's wonderful. Other than that, I am transferring preserved food and drinks from the luxury liner and the ferry to the rubber boat that I might need to explore the continent, training to use my improved body after leveling up and playing with Rimmer and Pent every day. In between, I was the only one who could entertain the gods separately. The gods were excited to see the new luxury liner, and it was a bit of a challenge, but there were no fights like the first time, so I think I can say that the entertainment was peaceful. The god of magic Sama was engrossed in new books. The god of war Sama and other muscle-brained male gods drank a lot of new drinks, and the creator god Sama was selfish, but that was within the bounds of what was expected. The beautiful goddess's glamorous post-beauty treatments and their glowing after-bath appearances kept my spirits up and got me through it all. In addition, the god of gastronomy Sama was overjoyed to learn a new dish on the menu, and I was able to enjoy the ear cleaning of the three goddesses, so I was very pleased with the experience. The only thing that bothered me was a conversation I had with creator god Sama. Wataru-kun, are you planning to go to the western continent this time? Yes, that is my intention. Why don't you ask me what kind of place it is? I can answer your questions, you know. No, I'm curious about it. But since it's an adventure, I thought I'd do the best I could on my own. Okay, well, good luck with that. Oh, I want to know about the dungeon on Dark Elf Island. Oh, that dungeon. I think it's better if I don't tell you. I'm sure you can handle it. See you later. But when we parted, creator god Sama had a very meaningful smile on his face. That smile was a smile of expectation that something interesting was going to happen. If creator god Sama is happy, something must be waiting for us. I am very curious whether it was a smile for the dungeon or for the western continent. I was curious, but in the end, the dungeon remained silent, and there was not even the slightest change. After watching the situation for about 20 days, I asked the village chief and Princess Anne-Marie to keep an eye out for the dungeon, and we decided to set out on our journey. Since I wanted to get to Beastman Village as late as possible, I set the castle as my first destination. If we were going to the western continent, it would be more efficient to stop at the Beastman Village first, but I desperately tried to convince them that we should consult with Camille-san and the others first because we needed to collect trade goods. My desperate persuasion worked. Not because I was desperate, but because they understood that I hated paperwork so much that I was desperate for it, and I managed to get my hopes up and reach this place. Alessia-san and the others felt that I didn't have to be so desperate since it would only take a month at the most to get there, but in my opinion, they didn't understand me at all. Unless there is an accident, the first time is the hardest. Over time, the work becomes more efficient and less time-consuming. And more efficiency means less paperwork. Even a month is not a foolproof period. That's why I want to spend as much time as possible on the castle. Of course, I'm also very interested in the western continent, but that's about it. This is Ilma-san's compilation of information about the western continent from ancient sources. It may not be the same today, but I would appreciate your advice on trade goods that could be sold there based on this information. It would be great if they could tell me as much as possible. The longer it takes to stock up, the later we will arrive at the Beastman Village. Wataru-san. Yes, Camille-san. She seems to have a hard time saying it. But is there something wrong with the documents? I have no doubt that the luxury liner products would sell, so if you are going to trade, why don't you sell those first? As Wataru-san said, the information over there is unknown, so it is safer to stock up here and trade only after checking the local market. Even I understand that much. If the other continent has not developed beyond the level of Earth, some goods will surely be sold there. That's true, but if we do that, we'll be in trouble. What do you mean? Camille-san, how are the sales of this ship's products? They are doing well. Don't you know, Wataru-san, that we are limiting the number of products sold because they are selling too well? Yes, I know, and this situation will probably happen in the western continent. Unless we limit the number of sales or sell at a discount, there will be an overwhelming surplus there. Oh, that would certainly be bad. As expected from Camille-san. She understood the problem right away. A trade imbalance is not a good thing. Besides, If I were to make a big profit and collect a large amount of money from the Western continent, the god of commerce Sama would probably look at me with disfavor. If we limit the number of goods we sell, that will not happen, but it is obvious that there will be a rush to get the goods. In this world, ship summoning products have so much appeal. In short, if I sell luxury liner goods over there, I will be stuck in business, not just in adventure, unless I can find a reliable merchant like Camille-san on the Western continent. It would be safer to avoid doing business with ship summoning products. I also thought it would be a good idea not to do business with a reverse mindset, since the original purpose of this project is to explore the Western continent for tourism. There is no need to force myself to do business there. Even if I need money from the Western continent, I don't have to worry about it because I have enough members who can handle the cost of the activities. I can explore enough over there, and if I find a seed of business, I can do business with that product. I do not hurt for money, so it would be a wise choice. I am well aware of that. However, the search for products is not for the noble reason of a merchant's will. It's hard to put the frustration into words, or maybe the closest thing is fear. I don't want to say that I haven't had hardships since I got my luxury liner, but basically, every day, I've been lukewarm. I live in a luxurious room surrounded by beautiful women, although I can't touch anyone except Ims and Felicia, and I can eat and drink as much as I want to a certain extent. There is no time pressure and no need to worry about money. There are almost no enemies or stressors, except for a few that might be waiting for me, such as Creator God Sama, the dungeons on Dark Elf Island, and the Aquamarine Kingdom. Although I am losing in terms of playboy status and personality, I am living as much as the head of the Duke's castle that sank into the sea. I am enjoying it. I enjoy it to the fullest, and I am satisfied with it, but to be honest, my current life is too unsuitable for me, and sometimes I get scared. At such times, I cling to my status as a merchant. The status of adventurer does not suit me, and even though I have tried to fight, I would rather not call myself an adventurer even now that my level has been raised. But my status as a merchant, I feel strongly that this is a status that I have achieved through my own thinking and efforts, even though I was helped by ship summoning. The fact that I am an F rank is also just right. I enjoy the gap between being an F rank and being a wealthy person, but when I imagine that my original self without a cheat would have been doing steady business, feeling happy or sad at this rank, I feel very comfortable with this status. Therefore, I don't mind if I fail. But I would like to at least try my best as a merchant when I go to a new continent. I guessed the unknown continent from ancient documents, predicted the climate and environment, chose products that would be profitable, and took a gamble. I made these predictions by reading and deciphering the documents with Ilma-san. I had no idea what to choose because I didn't know enough about the products myself, but I had a knowledgeable colleague to help me. I did my best to decipher the documents and gather as much information as I could. It would be a shame not to use this information, and I don't want it to go to waste. Therefore, I will leave the selection of the first products to be brought to the Western continent to Camille-san and the others. I won't begrudge you if it fails, but I would be very happy if you let me make a profit. It's not quite right to leave the final details to them, but I guess it's also a decision that's typical of me. Even though there are many first-class merchants here, it would be unbecoming for a merchant not to ask for help. Foo-foo. In that case, I must do my best. It's a big responsibility, but it's interesting. Well, it is interesting, but it is a prediction based on past literature to the extent that information on the continent is lost. How can you be so sure? That's the skill of a merchant, isn't it? Right. Well, I'm not very good at gambling. But it can't be helped, can it? My selfish request seems to have ignited the merchant spirit in Camille-san and the other two. Camille-san and Moro-san started to read the documents with glazed eyes, and Donatella-san, who had said something that seemed reluctant, was very serious. Unless something really bad happens, I won't lose much money. This was getting fun. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 4, 520. Chapter 4, Product Selection. In the captain's quarters of the castle, I gave Camille-san and the others information about the Western continent. Then, I gave them the documents that Ilma-san and I had translated and asked them to choose the trade goods to take to the Western continent. Camille-san and the other top merchants did their best to select the goods. I don't know how it will turn out, but I'm looking forward to doing business in the Western continent. which is different from the stability of the pepper trade and could be described as speculation. While Camille-san and the others were busy selecting products, I decided to take a leisurely stroll around the castle, something I hadn't done in a long time. Since moving around in a large group would be a nuisance to the other guests, I walked around the ship with Ins, Felicia, and Rimmer. As expected, Pent stayed behind. Inside the ship, there were many guests, both men and women, dressed in their best to enjoy the luxury liner, walking around happily with sparkling eyes. Since a luxury liner is used for long voyages according to the original specifications, it is not necessary to dress up all the time as long as you follow TPO. But perhaps it is because this is a short stay, everyone seems to be dressed up as best they can. T/N, time, place, occasions. There are some people moving around the ship with a desperate look on their faces, but they are probably merchants. They are probably more desperate to get their hands on the luxury liner's goods than to enjoy the luxury liner. There are different races and tribes in this world, and there are even some unusual staff members like Saparabi, which makes me feel like I've wandered into a cosplay venue for a bit. It is a bit uncomfortable, but I think a luxury liner is more attractive when there are many people on board. Well, a luxury liner without people is not so bad once you get used to it because it feels like a monopoly. Oh, is that Flora-san? I feel like her mood has changed a bit, but I'm sure it's because she's with Saparabi, whom I've assigned to her exclusively as promised. She's wearing plain clothes and seems private, but since I helped her find a job, I'm wondering if she's having any problems living here, so I thought I'd give her a call. Flora-san, it's been a while. What True-san? Ins, Felicia-san, Rimmer-chan, it's been a while. I called out to her, and she replied with a bright smile. Flora-san never forgets to greet Rimmer, which makes her even more likable. Flora-san, how's your work going? Is there any problem? Looking at that smile, I see that there seems to be no problem at work, but I check just to be sure. No problems at all. Well, it's a job, so there are hard times, but compared to when I worked for the guild, I'm too happy to worry. I don't really understand that last part, but I do know that it doesn't seem to be a problem at all. Flora, don't you look more beautiful? Following me, her childhood friend Ins was talking to Flora-san, but the content of the conversation was strange. Flora-san is a beautiful woman, to begin with. But oh, she has indeed become even more beautiful. As Ins said, it seems that it wasn't just my imagination that made her seem different. Foo. Did you find out? Flora-san proudly puffed out her chest. When asked if she had become beautiful, I was amazed at her courage to answer, did you find out? Usually, people would be modest, right? Is it only the Japanese who are modest in this case? You have improved your style, and your core is strong. This is not just the result of beauty treatments, is it? What did you do? While I was slightly confused by the cultural differences, Ins asked a series of questions. According to Ins, Flora had become beautiful not only on the surface but from the inside out. If this secret is known, not only Ins and Felicia but also Alessia-san and the others can become even more beautiful. I don't care about Japanese characters anymore. The way Flora-san's beauty is better is 100 times more important. Foo. My job now is as a gym instructor. As you probably know, there's yoga, aerobics, and all sorts of other exercise methods that I try to teach, and by trying them myself, my body has changed. An excellent receptionist in an adventurer's guild has changed jobs to become a gym instructor. Isn't that too different a job title? Still, aerobics and yoga? I rarely use the gym, as I get enough exercise killing monsters around the ship and training in combat. It was a blind spot. Wasn't Flora-san's job more of a different kind of work? I think it was something where she could use her experience in the Adventurers Guild, but Moro-san started an event called Ladies' Day. As part of the event, I was supposed to take care of the gym area. I heard it was Wataru-san's idea. Wasn't it? I remember mentioning that to Moro-san before. Moro-san consulted me, and I remember offering him such an idea. I see, it seems that I was the reason why Flora-san's work changed. The guests only here for a short time, so they mainly have to learn the forms, but everyone takes the training seriously because it leads to beauty, so it's quite rewarding. But, well, It seems that Flora is very happy with her current job, so I guess we can say that the result was a blessing in disguise. Oops, we're in the way if we keep talking in the hallway. Ins hasn't seen Flora-san for a while, so we should go our separate ways. Maybe she can get some information about the gym. The effect of the gym is amazing, by the way. I guess it's useless if it's not continued, but maybe we should use it more. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Let me put it this way, it's normal. Are you sure this is okay? Didn't the Duke's trade records show much more expensive and valuable items being transported? While I was enjoying the castle for the first time in a while, Camille-san and the others called me and handed me this list of goods. After checking the contents, I thought they were ordinary. They were so ordinary that even I, not born in this world, could understand them. They are all ordinary things. I don't know if it's right for me, an F-rank merchant, to say such a thing about the items that Camille-san and the other two top merchants had chosen, but I think there are other options. I can understand why you say that, Wataru-san. Camille-san answered my words with a wry smile. It seems that she had already taken my reaction into account. So there is a reason why these ordinary items were chosen? Of course there is. Do you need an explanation? Please do. Perhaps a straight merchant would be able to guess the reason why these ordinary items were chosen if they saw them. That's why Camille-san also confirmed whether an explanation was necessary, just in case. Well, before that, I revealed that I didn't understand, so I guess it was just a precaution, because Camille-san must understand that I am not a legitimate merchant but rather a fake merchant. These products are plants that will never grow in the Western continent unless there is an extreme climate change. They are not as profitable as pepper because they can be substituted and are not necessary for survival, but they are sure to attract attention because of their rarity and can be expected to fetch a slightly higher price. I see. So a common plant is on the list. It's simple if you think about it. From the data, I can tell that the Western continent has a pleasant climate. It might be similar to the climate of ancient Japan before the summers became a scorching hell, and this continent has a perpetual summer-like climate that is warm all year round. The difference between the two would be good for business. There was a time when tropical fruits were popular, even in ancient Japan. In a world where civilization is dying, and development is being stifled, they may be perceived as more valuable commodities. For a moment, I was worried that the greenhouse might have been developed, but it probably wouldn't have been a problem. If the civilization on the other continent had not died out and developed, there would have been contact from the other side since information would not have been lost. The fact that this is not the case means that they are so damaged that they cannot afford it. Above all, we can be sure that such a kind ending is impossible and that the problems of Creator God Sama would not fall only on one continent. He is equally troublesome to the gods, the nobles, and the people. That is what I understand about Creator God Sama. Therefore, it is unlikely that a greenhouse, which requires considerable technology and expense, will ever be developed. There is no possibility of small-scale greenhouses, but it is safe to assume that greenhouses large enough to affect commerce are unlikely. Given that, Camille-san and the others are not making the wrong choice. The goods on this list are quite selective. But this part of the list is the highlight of the list. This part is a list of very fragile fruits, but Wataru-san would be able to deliver them in high quality, wouldn't he? So, the ship summoning skill is also a choice that must be taken into consideration. It's amazing that even though I only taught her a little about ship summoning when I appointed her to the staff after she joined my group, she was able to understand and use it. If I were in Camille-san's position, I would probably forget about it immediately and not even think about using it. After listening to Camille-san's story, I understood. I had thought that because it was a special trade, special products were necessary, but to turn an ordinary product into something valuable by taking advantage of the differences between continents, this is where a merchant's skill comes into play. This must be where you showed your skills as a merchant. Because these are not special products, they are inexpensive. It was also a point of starting a business in an unknown continent with minimal risk. After listening to the story, I understood that it was a perfect choice. Except for one thing, my comfort. Hey, with this, most of the items will be ready in no time. Camille, how soon can you have everything? Alessia-san, who was also looking at the list, casually asked Camille-san what I was afraid of. I was thinking of placing an order after checking with Wataru-san, but I have already talked to some of the stores involved. We can probably have it ready tomorrow or the day after. Excellent. I knew she was excellent because I scouted her because she was excellent, but at this point, I wanted to complain to myself about having brought in such excellent people. Then I guess we could save a day and leave the day after tomorrow, right? Wataru, that's okay, right? Yes. The plan to take a slow boat trip while stocking up on hard-to-find items fell apart in an instant. It's really unacceptable to ask for another product because if the product is easy to get, the paperwork will come quickly, right? Yes, everyone but me has an excited look on their face at the thought of the Western continent. I can't open my mouth about such a stupid thing in this situation. I'm also curious about the Western continent, so I understand how they feel. But it's depressing. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. We'll be arriving at the Aquamarine Kingdom soon, won't we? Alessia-san speaks to me happily. Yes, we're almost there. I feel like we just left the castle, but I must be in the wrong mood because I can see the Aquamarine Kingdom in the distance. The good times go by so quickly, and the unpleasant events are coming at full speed. Is there no escape? Striving for the luxury liner. Volume 16 Chapter 5 620 Chapter 5 The Power of Money. I asked Camille and the others at the castle to choose a product to take to the Western continent. I had planned to ask them to choose a rare item, if possible, and extend the time until we could go to the Aquamarine Kingdom by searching for that item. However, the competent Camille-san and the others calculated the risk and reward and simply selected products that were easy to obtain, less risky, and more profitable. I never thought that the day would come when I would regret having been able to scout for competent people. Wataru, I hope you will give us this product as well, or rather, hand it over. I beg you, Wataru. I'm afraid of my wife and daughter's eyes. Please give me some of these cosmetics. And some liquor too, please. I'm begging you, too. I don't feel like living because of those souvenirs. I can't stand it when people ask me every day if I got the cosmetics. And when I tell them I didn't, they look at me like I'm a garbage bug. I am now being interrogated by the guildmaster of the Merchant Guild, a beautiful witch with a devilish expression on her face and threatened with a threatening negotiation, or rather, intimidation. And to my left and right, Luke-san, the guildmaster of the Adventurers Guild, and William-san, the architect I hired to design the town, are also making desperate appeals to me with desperate expressions on their faces. Hey-ins, members of Girasol, you're my bodyguards, right? Why are you looking at me like you have no choice? Felicia, Carla-san, and Claretta-san are trying to help me, but for some reason, Alessia-san and the others are stopping them. Why is that? The guildmaster of the Merchants Guild is strangely powerful. Please help me. Please. Apparently, they can't help me. When did the meaning of the word bodyguard change? Since my level is high and my body has been strengthened accordingly, I can take it, but it's still pretty hard. If I hadn't leveled up, my neck would probably be torn to shreds, right? Don't just shut up, answer me. It's obviously yes, isn't it? I want to answer, but I can't because my clothes, held in her hands, are exquisitely tightened around my neck, trying to suck the life out of me. Please notice. I thought I was going to die. If anything, it was the biggest crisis I've had since I fell into this world. I think I saw someone waving at me from across the river. Fufu. You deserve it. Women can be deadly when it comes to beauty pranks. You learned your lesson, didn't you? As I trembled with fear, Alessia-san laughed and spoke to me. Yes, I learned a lot from the bottom of my heart. But you could have helped me a little earlier, couldn't you? Alessia-san and the others are my bodyguards, aren't they? It's true that we are Wataru's bodyguards, but it's difficult to determine whether the cause of the pranks falls within the scope of bodyguarding or not. It feels more like an attack or a divine punishment, doesn't it? But, well, rest assured that we will protect you if your life is in danger. In short, she seems to want me to deal with the consequences of my own mischief by myself. I guess that's only natural. But I'm very concerned about the fact that she thinks that being strangled is not a life-threatening situation. Also, I don't agree with the word divine punishment either. It is true that I harassed her a little, but compared to the bad behavior of Creator God Sama, it was too cute to be judged. Even as a prank, it would be too unreasonable to be punished by the heavens for it. But even so, I was careless. I was so preoccupied with the hell of paperwork that I forgot that I had played a prank on them as repayment for the hell of paperwork I had given them the last time I was about to leave. As a result, all I could think about was escaping the hell of paperwork, and I entered the capital only to be strangled by the guildmaster and the others who flew in. Yes, it's sad to say, but I was just a careless fool. I should at least remember that I played a prank on them. What, Trusan? Can I hear your answer? I hear the voice of the Merchant Guild's guildmaster from behind me, and my body reacts with a reflexive twitch. Huh? Am I being traumatized by the guildmaster of the Merchant Guild? Even if I didn't think about it, even if it was an irresistible force, if I were to be strangled by a beautiful witch with a demonic expression on her face, I would at least be traumatized. The sight of monsters being slaughtered is so commonplace that it has made my senses go haywire, but being strangled, even if not on purpose, is a rather unfashionable situation. On top of that, Dorothea-san and the others admonished them to calm down, and on the surface, the guildmaster and the others are calm. But even though they are smiling, their eyes are not smiling, and I think there is something in their voices that is hard to resist. If I make the mistake of answering, I will probably end up in a terrible situation. I have to answer carefully. Of course, yes. Well, I left it hoping that you would like it, but it seems that you liked it more than I expected, and I am happy too. Although there is a limit to the number of pieces, since it is indeed a valuable item, I will gladly wholesale enough for the guildmaster and the others to use. After much deliberation, I decided to surrender almost completely. Pride? This word is not in my dictionary. Thank you very much. Let's have a meeting and sign the contract right away. Yes. Of course. Please be gentle with me. A meeting. I hadn't reckoned with the possibility of another hell before the hell of paperwork. Freedom is wonderful. After that, I was surrounded by guildmasters and had to face a bully who had called a meeting. In addition to the first three, the guildmasters of the blacksmith, lumberjack, and cooking guilds had also joined the group, and I could only tremble like a little rabbit when surrounded by the higher-ups. But I did my best. I was almost completely at their mercy, but I defended my last line of defense with my own strength and with the help of Dorothea-san and Ilma-san. Even the castle, which I had left to Camille-san and the others I had recruited directly, had placed restrictions on the products, but I resisted, saying that it would be unfair for us to sell unlimited quantities of wholesale goods. I confronted the guildmasters, who threatened, cajoled, and persuaded me, and I succeeded in limiting the number to a level that would be sufficient for their personal use but not enough to be treated as merchandise. I think I can be proud of this result against the crafty old foxes of the guildmasters. Well, I wouldn't have had to go through all that trouble if I hadn't pulled a stupid prank to pay them back for all that paperwork. All the guildmasters seemed to be affected to some degree, and I heard a lot of bitter complaints. Eventually, the negotiations came to an end, and the room I was taken to for tea was filled with documents. I later found out that while the guildmasters and I were in intense negotiations, documents from all the guilds involved had been gathered for me to confirm and finalize the deal. They knew that I had been holed up on the ship the last time, and I easily fell into the trap of the guildmasters, who wanted to make me work without letting me go. I was so exhausted from all the negotiations that I was treated like this. I think the guildmasters are devils. I appealed to them that the work should have been done without me, but if the owner of the construction company had made the decision, there would have been less checking of documents, and the work would have been done more quickly because decisions requiring delicate judgment could have been made. And most importantly, they denied that the level of trust was different. I asked Alessia-san and the others for help, but when I was told that a huge amount of money and many people involved in the project would be in trouble, neither I nor Alessia-san could resist until the end. I asked to return to the ship at least once, but they silently refused. It was as if they didn't trust me at all. And so began the hell of paperwork. The investment of 2,500 platinum coins is an extraordinary amount in this world. The merchants, encouraged by the money, seemed to be in high spirits, working furiously, and as a result, the number of documents increased at a furious pace. Dorothea-san, Ilma-san, and Claretta-san, who are good at paperwork, help out, but as the number of documents decreases, more documents are added. The seemingly endless repetition Makes me want to puke just thinking about it. I've just escaped the hell of paperwork. I'm going to seal those memories that make me want to vomit in the depths of my memory and enjoy the present. By the way, the power of money is amazing, isn't it? Yes, that's right. It is amazing. Alessia-san agrees with my words. We are now on an inspection tour of the nearest village to the planned construction site of Beastman City. In this village, we plan to build a dormitory for the beastmen gathered from other places and a yard for the construction of the city, and we also plan to build a road to the proposed site of the Beastman City. The Beastman City will be built in an inconvenient location in the Aquamarine Kingdom as the closest village to the city. This village is also not in a good location, and I had heard that it was a small village with a delicate environment. In fact, this was probably the case before the construction of Beastman City began. However, there was no trace or such a village. In front of me, the road was well maintained, wide, and reconstructed to transport a large amount of materials. Many beastmen must have been gathered from relatively nearby areas as an advance party. Many buildings had been constructed to provide sleeping quarters for the beastmen. Merchants who have gathered to build the city and do business with the increased number of beastmen. Less than half a year has passed since the decision was made to build the Beastman City, and the village that should have been desolate has been transformed into a village full of vitality and hope. The scary thing is that this village is no longer the size of a village, but a town. The scary thing is that this town is only the foundation for building a city of beastmen. I know that the foundation of everything is important, but right now, we are still in the process of building a road to the proposed location of the Beastman City. In the future, many more beastmen will gather, and materials will be gathered to build the village that will serve as a satellite for the construction of the city, as well as materials for the actual construction of the city. In other words, the village will become a city even though it is still in the preparation stage. There's no doubt that I came here to inspect the situation, but I didn't expect to understand many unusual things even before I entered the city. There are so many people and funds moving around that a village can turn into a city in a very short time. It's a ridiculous amount of paperwork. I just put in the money to spend on charitable expenses, and in that initial stage, I realized the awesome power of money. I still plan to make more investments, and I wonder what will happen when the construction of Beastman City is in full swing. Anyway, what I understand now is that the power of money is awesome. That's it. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 6, 720. Chapter 6, Bustling Town. When I arrived in the Aquamarine Kingdom, I was thrown into a paperwork hell after the guildmasters forced me to pay karmic retribution for a prank I had forgotten about. After tearfully dealing with a room full of paperwork, I finally got to my original destination of inspecting the construction of the Beastman City, but it was a big deal over here. Hey, this way, bring it over here. It's freshly caught first thing in the morning, straight from the harbor. It's delicious, so go ahead and try it. At this rate, we'll never make it in time. Hurry. Hurry, hurry. I knew from the outside that the village was developed and full of vitality, but I was surprised at how crowded it was when I entered. A man who looked like a carpenter was giving instructions with an impatient look on his face as if something was chasing him. The beastmen ran around with building materials in their arms, following his instructions. The owner of the store loudly calls out to the beastmen to sell to them. Is this just a construction site with a deadline approaching? It might seem that way, but the atmosphere has spread throughout the city, and it is extremely noisy. What is interesting, however, is that although everyone is hurried and busy, they all seem to be enjoying themselves and are full of motivation. Rather than a work-intensive scene, the atmosphere is more like that of a college student preparing for a festival and just in time to pull an all-nighter. Well, the chaos is tremendous, as various kinds of people, including humans, beastmen, and fishmen, are gathered here. The atmosphere was so chaotic that even Rimmer jumped happily over my head. It seems that he likes this noisy and chaotic atmosphere. Come to think of it, my first college festival was like this. While the whole university was buzzing with excitement, the circle I belonged to was not prepared in time, and we worked all night following the instructions of our seniors. It was hard work but fun. After the festival was over, we laughed and said that we would have more time to prepare for the next festival. If I had not fallen into another world before the next festival, would I have had more time to prepare for the festival? I feel like I've been working all night for some reason. It's noisy, but it's not a bad atmosphere. Yes, everyone seems to be working happily. I'm a little surprised when Claretta-san replies in a lively and cheerful voice to the words I muttered in a somber mood after thinking of Japan for the first time in a long time. She has a flashy breastplate but is basically reserved and quiet, and it is rare to see her so excited about anything other than cooking and stuffed animals. "Oh, I'm sorry." She shyly apologizes to my startled face. "It's very sweet." "No, it's totally fine. But did Claretta like this atmosphere?" "Foo-foo. Yes, I like it." It might be hard for Wataru to understand, but it is rare to find a place where there are so many beastmen, and they work so happily. It could only be in the Beast Kingdom. Oh, I see, Claretta-san tells me with a happy yet slightly sad look on her face. It must be about human supremacy. The kingdoms of Latina, Palermo, and Brescia, as well as this Aquamarine Kingdom, are countries with little discrimination against beastmen. But it is definitely a land that is basically dominated by humans. I have never been to the Beast Kingdom, but I think it would be hard to find another place where beastmen gather and work so energetically. Why are both Master and Claretta so somber in the midst of all this noise? If there are not enough places for beastmen to live happily, you should make more of them. Master can do it, can't you? While Claretta-san and I were feeling sad, Ins, who was listening to what we were saying, started to say something absurd. "Foo-foo. That's also true. Wataru could do it." Claretta-san agreed with her. "Ins, that's a good idea." "Ara, it's a dream come true." Even Carla-san and Ilma-san got on board. "No, no, no, that's impossible." "You can't do it, Wataru." Carla-san looked at me with a sad face. I have a weakness for this pure face of Carla-san, I think. Well, I'm not only weak for Carla-san but for women in general. But there is also the matter of the Dark Elves, the mental institutions, and especially the Western continent, and it is indeed difficult to increase the number of places other than here where the beastmen can feel safe. I think we can manage financially with the charitable expenses that will increase in the future, but if there are more opportunities for paperwork, the stress will make me mentally ill. Anyway, for now, let's focus on this place first. It won't help if we expand our reach and mess up this place as well. Isn't that right? If I responded carelessly, I would be in great trouble, so I somehow tried to maintain the status quo. It's true, isn't it? Perhaps I was a little carried away by the happy scene in front of me. First of all, we have to build up one by one, steadily. Claretta-san agreed with my bitter apology. Ilma-san laughed meaningfully, but I guess she was just teasing me this time because she is a person who firmly accepts the reality of the situation. Carla-san also seemed to be convinced by Claretta-san's words, as if that was the way it should be. Let's take a look around first, shall we? We've gotten over the situation for now, so let's go see the town before things get too crazy. Wataru-san. Oh, Il-san, it's been a long time. I didn't know you were here. While inspecting the city, I was approached by a man carrying a bundle of documents and accompanied by a group of beastmen. I was confused for a moment because I could not remember his name, but I was able to remember him by the sight of him holding a bundle of documents. Il-san is an apprentice of the architect William-san, and he is a very talented man who has been trained mercilessly by William-san, who is a demon when it comes to architecture. He is also a poor guy who is forced to work like a workhorse by William-san, who has become extremely busy since I suddenly started talking about building a beastman city. I didn't see him during the paperwork hell, but was he sent here? The dark circles under his eyes that were so clear the last time I saw him are gone, and he looks very energetic and full of life. I think it is because he is physically separated from William-san and is less used to being worked on. Can I talk to you for a moment, Yuldana?" While I was talking to Yul-san, one of the beastmen who was with him joined the conversation with a look of trepidation. He looked at me with kind of sparkling eyes, but I don't have any taste for that side of things, you know. "What's wrong?" "You said the name was Wataru-san earlier, didn't you?" "Could it be that Wataru-sama?" "What is this Wataru-sama?" "Oh, that's what you mean." "That's right, this man is the client, Wataru-san, that's for sure." "Oh." At Yul-san's answer, not only the beastman who asked the question, but also the beastmen around him cheered with a mixture of surprise and joy. And then, the passionate, almost burning eyes of the beastman focused on me. "Huh? Wait, other beastmen are gathering around. My name is being passed around by word of mouth, like it's Wataru-sama or Wataru-sama is here." "It's embarrassing," so don't do it. Don't gather, don't kneel, don't worship me. I have heard many words of gratitude. Most of them are thankful and happy to be free from slavery, but I also hear that some are thankful for the food they can eat every day and for a place where they can feel safe and work. In short, it seems that as a result of the large amount of money spent on charity, many of the beastmen gathered here have been saved and are grateful. It's a charity, and I expected it to be appreciated in its own way. I'm a snob, so I'm happy to be appreciated, and I don't mind being appreciated. But at the same time, I'm a petty, lazy person, and I don't like to be adored, noted, or over-appreciated. I do not want to help the beastmen out of goodwill or chivalry but rather to spend a large surplus of charity money, so I feel slightly hurt when I hear genuine words of appreciation. It's also subtle because most of the initial construction work is mainly manual labor, and most of the beastmen are men. I mean, it's scary. Master, you are very popular. Ha ha ha. Yes. I managed to reply to In's words, but my expression would probably be all cramped. The city that was once filled with the lively energy of a cultural festival has now become a chapel of a fanatical religion, full of gratitude and prayer. And I am in the role of the founder of this sect. The burden is too heavy. Well, I can understand the situation because I freed the beastmen who were in a very difficult environment. But I also feel the pain of the businessmen and fishermen looking at me blankly. I must do something. How can I do something? Wataru, calm down. First, show them that you have received their thanks. Then tell them that you support the construction of the city, and you'll be fine. Perhaps sensing my panic, Alma-san gave me some advice. I see, that's what I should do. Well, I have received your gratitude. I'll support the construction of the city. Please do your best. My words were met with an explosive cheer. I don't know what it was, but everyone seemed motivated to get up on their feet, and the religious atmosphere was gone. It seemed to have worked. Ins, what's wrong? I'm relieved that we made it through this. But then I see in stunned expression. How can you tell me what Ilma told you? Even Ilma is surprised. You know, huh? I was surprised by In's words and looked at Ilma-san, who was nodding with a bitter smile on her face. Did I make a mistake? Well, it wasn't a mistake, but it was a bit easy. I think you could have used a few more words. I see, so you mean it wasn't well directed. From Ilma-san's point of view, she was just advising the direction, and it was my job to embellish her advice to liven things up. I don't know what that means. But please don't be unreasonable. That's what great leaders and heroes do, not what I, a minor citizen, can do. And this excitement with simple words. If the staging had been better, it would have been more outrageous, wouldn't it? Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 7 820 Chapter 7, Aquamarine Kingdom Escape. Somehow, I managed to escape the hell of paperwork and went on an inspection tour of a village that was going to be a frontier base for the construction of the Beastman City. I was greeted enthusiastically by many beastmen, men, there. I'm sorry we only have this. No, I was thirsty, so I really appreciate it. I was thirsty from the tension and the speech, so I was really grateful to have something to drink. Yes, it's delicious. Yul-san served me a cup of lukewarm tea, but I was grateful that I could drink it all at once. The aroma was a bit cheap, but if you're drinking it to quench your thirst, this is just the right amount of tea. Still, you were very popular, Wataru-san. Haha, I was surprised. I respond to Yul-san's sincere words with a wry smile. Hey, wait a minute. The beastmen gathered around me, and I managed to calm the place down by making a speech. But that doesn't mean it's as easy as just settling the matter. The storm of gratitude and worship had subsided, but the eyes of the assembled beastmen were extremely kind to me. I am not so stubborn as to be able to leisurely inspect the city under such a friendly gaze from these burly men, which even seemed to include physical pressure, though it was a friendly gaze. When I was in trouble, Yul-san asked me if I would like to take a break in his office and offered me tea. So I thanked him, but didn't he cause such a fuss in the first place by casually revealing to his beast companion that this person was Wataru-san? Could it be that he was trying to avenge the previous drastic increase in work due to me and the fact that he had been driven to the brink of death by overwork? I looked at Yul-san's expression with fear, but he looked at me with a smile and didn't seem to have anything against me. So, did he cause that commotion naturally? That's scary, isn't it? Well, with my inexperienced eyes, I can't tell if he's a natural or if he's hiding his hatred for me under the mask of his smile. Just to be sure, I'll keep Yul-san on my radar as a person to watch out for. I continued my conversation with Yul-san while being secretly suspicious. Although it was difficult for me to inspect the city, I was able to understand the progress of the construction to some extent because I was able to speak directly with the person in charge of the construction site. According to Yul-san, the size of this city will continue to grow. The merchants are so eager to bring in the beastmen that even now, there are not enough dormitories to accommodate them. Half of the beastmen are building in the city, and the other half are working to improve the road that connects this city to the royal capital and to build a road to the proposed site of the beastmen city. It is said that the construction of this road is going well. It seems that the beastmen are working extremely hard, partly because they are building their own city. Still, Wataru's popularity was quite impressive. After hearing Yul-san's story, the atmosphere relaxed a bit, and Alessia-san rehashed the conversation that had been left unanswered. If possible, I would have preferred not to talk about it because I didn't want to remember that frenzied atmosphere. It's only natural. For the beastmen, Wataru-san is their savior. As if it were a matter of course, Yul-san interjected some outrageous words into the conversation. What do you mean by savior? Yes, that's right. It might not be an exaggeration to say that Master is their savior. A betrayal I wasn't expecting. Felicia, you know better than anyone that I am no savior, don't you? I am a fool who buys you with money and takes great pleasure in itchy this and itchy that, right? What are you saying now? No, Yul-san, it's just that. I'm just having a hard time finding a good use for my loose change, so please don't think so big about it. Felicia knows I'm not such a respectable person, right? The idea of building a city for the beastmen who have money problems is wonderful. Wataru-san, there is no need to be shy. It is natural for good deeds to be praised. In fact, it is a social problem if it is not praised. Yul-san, I'm not embarrassed at all, and it's not a social problem, so don't say that with a straight face. I got goosebumps hearing something so far away from me. Listen, Wataru-san, you paid money for needy beasts and gave them a place to live, food, and freedom, and with the best guarantee of all, a contract with the god of commerce Sama. You just saw how grateful the beastmen are, didn't you? Be proud of yourselves. I see, there must be a saint with the same name as mine in this land. I guess I'm being mistaken for that person. Because in the process of sorting out the paperwork in hell, I found a lot of documents related to the contract of the god of commerce Sama, and I thought that I should cancel the contract of the god of commerce Sama now. How can a person who thinks like that be a savior? Oh, number. Ins and Ilma-san started to grin at me. This is definitely a sign of a bad trip. Unlike Felicia, they understand my feelings and are trying to have fun by embarrassing me. Yes, Master. I'm sorry to bother you with your busy schedule. I've heard some helpful things, and now I'm leaving. Okay. The interception was successful. Judging by the unhappy expression on In's face, she must have been thinking of something bad. Wataru-san is an important customer, so it's important for me to make you understand the situation. You're not interrupting anything, so please take your time. Yul-san, he's a natural, isn't he? I think he is a bad kind of natural who explodes his naturalness in a bad way. When dealing with that kind of person, if you are reserved and choose your words carefully, you will end up at the bottom of a pit and suffer a terrible fate. Let's just say it outright and leave this city quickly. And let's stay away from the Aquamarine Kingdom for now. *****. Phew. I finally calmed down. I lay down on the Lutter's sofa and relaxed my whole body while hugging Rimmer. When I left Yul-san's office, I found that my story had spread, and even the beastmen who couldn't join the commotion earlier had gathered. So I had to give my speech again. So I was scolded that I should use more fancy words, but I managed to finish my simple speech and escaped from the city. When I returned to the royal capital in a mentally exhausted state, the papers were piling up again. They wanted to take me to the document room by force, but I refused, saying that I had to leave the harbor. Then, the guildmaster and the others came to me and begged me to replenish the cosmetics and liquor left over from my absence. I fought off the greedy guildmasters who were trying to get as much loot as possible, jumped aboard the Lutto, and sailed away. After working so hard, it would be forgivable if I stayed on the sofa in a slumped position. Foo-foo, it was a hard day's work, wasn't it? Thank you for your hard work. As I promised myself that I would just lounge around for another hour or so, Claretta-san gave me a shout of thanks for my hard work. It was enough to cheer me up. It's hard to tell if I'm just a simpleton or if Claretta-san's healing power is amazing. Okay, I'll just keep pretending to be exhausted and let Claretta-san pamper me. Now that all of our business is done, it's time to leave for the Western continent. Everyone gathers for a strategy meeting. With Alessia-san's words of assembly, my healing has left me. At least let me be pampered a little, you know. Wataru, we're going to start, so please stand up. Yes, it looks like I won't even have time to linger today. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Hey, Yuldana. One of the beastmen speaks to me in a serious tone. Did something unusual happen? Is something wrong? No, nothing happened, but I need to talk to you about something. Can you give me a moment of your time? Yes, no problem. It does not seem to be an accident, but a consultation. It is rare to have a consultation from the beastman side, who is grateful for the current situation and working to the best of his ability. I'm a little worried that some strange opinions might come out of the blue. Thank you. By the way, Wataru-sama came to see us today, didn't he? Yes. What's wrong with that? If it's Wataru-sama, he was satisfied with everyone's work, so there's nothing to worry about, right? He listened carefully to what I had to say, and on his way home, Wataru-san brought a large amount of alcohol and food for us to drink together. I think it is safe to assume that he was pleased with our work. I see. He was satisfied. Huh? No, I'm glad about that, but our discussion was about something else. Oh, it was something else, huh? What is it then? Well, we were all talking about, can we change the design of the city now? It's not impossible, but it depends on what it is. Changing the design at this stage, even though we have not yet started building the city, we have already completed the design, received Wataru-san's approval, and started preparing materials. We want to fulfill the wishes of the beastmen who will actually live in the city as much as possible. But it is difficult to make drastic changes. I'd like to do it if possible, but if it's impossible, I guess it's impossible. It's unfortunate, but I'll give up. I understand. Let me hear it. Surprisingly, there are many clients who demand sudden design changes, but it helps if they are willing to give up without sticking to their own opinions. There are many people who make unreasonable demands and then demand that something be done about it because they are the ones paying for it. This kind of low-key attitude is very helpful. We were going to build a big square inches the city, weren't we? Yes, it will be used for fairs and festivals, so we reserved a place for the plaza. Can you erect a statue of Wataru-sama in the middle of it? If possible, we would like to express our gratitude to Wataru-sama. Oh, please tell me more about that. It might not be a bad idea. The amount of construction materials needed will increase. But since Wataru-san has given us a lot of money, we can afford to build the statue. Since it is a square, we can be flexible with the design, and any confusion caused by sudden changes in the design will not be as serious. Besides, Wataru-san seems to be a very reserved person. It might be a good idea to let him know how much the beastmen appreciate him by building his statue. This is getting kind of fun. Let's make sure that we boil down our ideas and that Wataru-san will be very happy with them. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 8, 920. Chapter 8. Negligence. When I went to inspect the village that would be the base for the construction of the Beastman city, the Beastman thanked me so much that it scared me. Also, due to the influence of the architect, who was bursting with naturalness in the wrong direction, I was worshipped like a saint who is seriously uncomfortable but reserved and not proud of his accomplishments. I don't mind being praised and thanked, but I think there is a limit. After escaping from the Aquamarine Kingdom, the adventure to an unknown land has finally begun. However, since it is a fake luxury liner, the only work we have to do is to determine the ship's course and exterminate the sea monsters that periodically gather, so my life is not so different from the usual. It was a luxury, but as long as we travel by ship, it would be difficult for us to feel adventurous. There were times when I got carried away. That's nauseating. We are caught in a tremendous vortex right now, and I am incredibly seasick. At first, the ship was speeding up, and I was thinking, oh, we must have been caught in the current. And since we were going in the right direction, we were lucky to get there early. Without any sense of urgency. Halfway there, the ship veered off course, and I turned the rudder to correct it. By the time I realized that the rudder was not working properly, it was too late. What I thought was the ocean current turned out to be the edge of a giant vortex, And while I was leisurely letting the current carry the ship was gradually being swept into the vortex, and when I tried to correct the direction, it was impossible to escape even with the power of the luxury liner's engines. In vain. The ship was sucked into the center of the vortex and is now spinning in the center of the vortex. It was bad enough that we were all amateurs at sea, and we trusted the ship summoning cheats so much that we didn't even set up a lookout. Fortunately, the Chateau spins without breaking or sinking due to its unsinkable and indestructible effect. Still, the G-force inside the ship, though weak, is always on. Felicia, Alessia-san, Claretta-san, and myself suffer from severe seasickness. The seasickness was relieved by Claretta-san's recovery magic, but even when we recovered, the situation around us did not change, so we ended up getting seasick again. In the end, we were stuck. I am sorry, I knew about the vortex, but it was my fault for not paying attention. Since I was appointed captain by staff appointment, I have some knowledge about navigation and ships. I have knowledge about it, but it is not the kind of knowledge that comes automatically in the context of the situation, but a dictionary kind of knowledge. Even if you have a dictionary, if you don't try to look up the meaning of a word, the dictionary is useless. It is a typical pattern of not being able to use knowledge. In the same way, it wasn't just Wataru's fault. We didn't all do our best, and we're all equally guilty. You, Alessia-san had said something very nice but didn't finish and became silent. Maybe she had a lump in her throat. Oh no, not my throat, too. It's a mistake to leave the sea god's sacred treasure behind, isn't it? As I frantically swallowed the thing that had come to my throat, Dorothea-san muttered in frustration. That's right. With the sea god's sacred treasure, even a supermassive vortex could have been easily obliterated. But I left it with Princess Anne-Marie, thinking that it might be necessary to evacuate to the sea if something happened in the dungeon on Dark Elf Island. Since we are almost invincible at sea, I still think I was right in thinking that we should give priority to the Dark Elf Island. I had lightly thought that we could just go back to get the sea god's sacred treasure when we needed it, but I did not expect to be trapped in a situation where we could not move at sea. The threat of nature is frightening. There is nothing we can do about what we have left behind. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Seasickness won't kill us, so should we wait for the vortexes to disappear? We've come this far on the Duke's sailing route, so there's a chance the vortex will disappear in time, and we'll be able to get through. Does the vortex appear and disappear with the ebb and flow of the tide? Then, there is a good chance that Ilma-san is right and that the vortex will disappear. However, I searched again for knowledge about vortexes, and there are some vortexes that do not disappear. I also found knowledge about vortexes that do disappear, but once they appear, they don't disappear for years. Luxury liners are well equipped with food and facilities, so it is possible to endure vortexes for a period of years, and since you eventually get used to the seasickness, it is not impossible to maintain the status quo. However, being confined to the ship for a year is a problem. I don't want to continue to suffer from seasickness until I get used to it. We'll hold out for a few days. If the vortex doesn't disappear, we'll escape. I really wanted to escape right now, but I knew that even escaping would be dangerous. I hope that the vortex will disappear if possible. Considering the pain of seasickness and the fear of escaping, a 2-day wait would be reasonable. Oh, if I prayed to the sea god Sama, wouldn't he make the vortex disappear? I'll try that later. I don't mind if we escape. But how will we escape? Naturally, Dorothea-san asked for an explanation of how to escape. But what should I do? If I explain it now, they might start talking about escaping right away, right? What's wrong? Is there something wrong with the escape method? Oh, are you feeling sick? It seems that my concern has worried Dorothea-san. Even if I hide it, I'll have to explain it in 2 days. And we need to prepare in advance, so why not explain it now? Even if they start talking about escaping now, it will be okay as long as I don't summon the ship. No, that's okay. Then I will explain. I think the Galette can force its way out even in its current state. The powerboat's strength is extraordinary, so it should be able to handle even this super vortex. The powerboat's unsinkable and indestructible effects ensure that it will not sink, and its barrier makes it possible to deal with any monsters or driftwood that get caught in the vortex. The only danger would be tipping over, but as long as we wore our safety belts, we would not be thrown overboard, and the barrier would prevent seawater from entering the boat. At my words, the eyes of Alessia-san, Marina-san, and Ins began to light up. Alessia-san looked as if she had forgotten all about the seasickness she must have been suffering from. I dreaded this situation. How could three people who love sailing not be motivated by this story? There is no reason not to. The three of them would see the dangerous situation outside as nothing more than a fun attraction. Wataru, let's get out now. See, that's the reaction I was expecting. The escape will take place in 2 days, I assured them with a clear and definite statement that was unthinkable to me. Escape in a vortex that is like a blender, with 3 speed maniacs steering the boat? If there's nothing we can do, I'll be prepared, but I'll do my best to refrain from doing so if possible. Let's ask Sea God Sama first. Oh, I'm going to throw up. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Let's start the escape, Alessia-san says with a bright smile, wondering if having fun will help her overcome her terrible seasickness. I was even more seasick because of the mental pressure, so why was there such a difference? I asked Sea God Sama to make the vortex disappear, but he simply refused my request. Sea God Sama seemed distraught. If it had been just Sea God Sama, he might have listened to my request. But the presence of Creator God Sama there destroyed any hope. No interference in the lower world. It was rejected by Creator God Sama's final word. Who would have thought such a thing, I thought. But Creator God Sama is the kind of person who is easy on himself and hard on others, so there was nothing I could do. All I could do was give up and hope that the vortex would disappear by itself. While I was watching the vortex and praying for it to disappear, Alessia-san, Marina-san, and Ins were also praying, but they were probably praying that the vortex would not disappear. The wish of the 3 beautiful women and my wish. It was only natural that the wishes of the 3 beautiful women would be granted. My prayers were in vain as the shadow continued to spin for 2 days, and the decision was made to force our escape aboard the galette. Wataru, please. Yes. Ship summoning. A magic circle was unfurled in the air from the ship's stern. Alessia-san, Ilma-san, and Kyla-san quickly jump onto the magic circle. The shadow is spinning, so it is moving further and further away from the magic circle. Running towards the magic circle, the galette bounces but lands safely on the water. It immediately began to move, and Alessia-san and her crew waved to us as we followed the stern of the boat along the current of the vortex. The galette seemed to be able to maneuver through the vortex. Even though we had practiced before and our personal safety was assured, I was still a little nervous. Dorothea-san, Marina-san, and Claretta-san boarded the boat safely in the same way. Finally, it was my turn. I summoned the galette, jumped onto the magic circle, and imagined the seat I was going to sit on. When the seat appeared, I quickly sat down and fastened my seatbelt. When the magic circle disappeared, the galette began to fall. Pent, are you okay? He seems to be okay somehow. The biggest problem with this operation was Pent's growing body. Pent's body would not fit into the galette in the usual way, and it was difficult to adjust him to fit into the galette by trial and error, taking advantage of his flexible body. Well, his tail is sticking out of the ship, though. The boat landed on the water with a splash and a considerable impact. Ins immediately starts the engine, but it is usually scary because we are swallowed by the vortex before we can move. While I endured the fear, I repatriated the chateau. Meanwhile, we joined 2 other boats that were circling around to avoid running into the vortex. Ins, as a handicap for Pent-chan, I'll wait 2 minutes. The first ship out of the vortex wins. Phew. Alessia-san, what are you talking about? I accept without reservation. Wait a minute. Is this a race? Are you going to race under these circumstances? Recently, Ins, Alessia-san, and Marina-san were talking happily. If not, was it a meeting for a race? Felicia and I both have maximum seasickness, you know. Give us a break. Hey, Ins, you can't race under these conditions. But you said that once we landed on the water and joined the others, we'd escape as fast as we could, right? Yes, I said that, but it's full speed, so it wouldn't make any difference if we ran. Alessia and the others checked the situation during the descent and gave us a handicap, so it's not a problem. Is that so? Master, we're being rounded up, Felicia tells me with a pale face. Yes, that's right. There's a difference between a full-speed escape and a race. Hey, Ins, let's go. Ins, please, just listen to me. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 9 1020. Chapter 9, Race Results. When I was so careless that I thought the voyage would be a piece of cake with the ship summoning cheat, We were easily caught in a super huge vortex and could not escape in the luxury liner. Although the power of the ship summoning did not sink the ship, it kept spinning around in the center of the vortex, making me seasick. Finally, we were forced to escape on the motorboat Galette, and for some reason, the race was on. To be honest, I don't understand the meaning. The race started suddenly. Since we were escaping against the current of a huge vortex, the engine was roaring. But we were not going that fast. That means the speed doesn't scare me, but that doesn't make me feel any better. The vibration is great because we are going against the current, and to avoid the obstacles of monsters and drifting objects pulled into the vortex, we have to steer sharply. There is no way that a small motorboat can be stable with such movement, and the Galette is naturally tossed about like a toy bamboo boat tossed by the current of a small river. Felicia and I, who were already seasick, could not stand the rocking, and our seasickness worsened. Ahaha. It's not very fast, but it's fun. I can only look resentfully at Ins, who is enjoying herself while enduring the bumps and swaying. I doubt that my voice would reach her even if I wanted to stop her, and it is also true that she would have to use all her strength to escape the vortex. And most importantly, if I open my mouth, I will vomit. I always carry a vomit bag with me when I get seasick, and I know that if the worst comes to the worst, I can throw up, and it will make me feel better. But if I throw up, I'll probably take Felicia with me. I don't want to make Felicia throw up because of my puking, and I don't want the two of us throwing up all over the place in this cramped cabin or something surreal like that. I'm going to hold out for now, and when we get out of here, I'm going to go to the bathroom and empty my stomach to the fullest. Well, I've been so seasick lately that I've barely been able to eat, and I think most of what comes out will be gastric juices. It's bad. While I was concentrating on enduring, I heard a nasty word from the cockpit. I reflexively looked up and saw a large tree coming from the side. Avoid. Before I could finish, the tree crashed into the Galette. At the same time, I felt something in my throat, just a little. Because of the barrier, there was no problem with the collision. In fact, even if a big tree hits the ship, it will have no impact on the ship. So it would have been better if it had just hit the ship, but this time, it turned out to be annoying. The defensive power of the ship's summoning barrier is almost invincible, but the barrier itself does not have the power to repel enemies or obstacles. If the enemy's momentum is strong enough, it will bounce off the barrier and take damage on its own, but in such a situation, it becomes a bit of a nuisance. The swirling current pushes the tree against the barrier, and combined with the hooking effect of the branches and roots, the tree is firmly attached to the barrier. We have hit the worst of the obstacles. It takes time and effort, but if it is a monster stuck to the barrier, it can be removed by killing it, and if it is an uneven object, it is easy to remove. But this time, the tree had a rather impressive trunk, and what's worse, the branches and roots were still in place. The tree probably came from a river or coastal area and washed out here intact in a landslide or something. Ins maneuvered the hull to somehow get out of the tree's grip, but there was no sign of it coming loose. As if by will, the tree followed the hull as it moved. The tree becomes a weight and resistance, and the Galette is gradually swept away. At this rate, the ship will fall back into the center of the vortex. Ins, can you get it off? I ask Ins and swallow a sour mouthful. I don't want to have to start all over again. I don't think I can. Master, can't you do something? Ins is also in a hurry to do something, but there seems to be nothing she can do about it. Well, I guess most of her impatience is because she doesn't want Alessia-san and the others to catch up with us. But what should I do? I might be able to make it if I push her with my leveled power, but I'm a little afraid to lean out of the barriers in this unstable state. I feel like it would be okay if I let them hold my body down, but in a situation like this, if it were a template, an accident would definitely happen, and I would be thrown out to sea. I don't want to confuse reality with 2D, but I have a terribly bad feeling about it, so I'll avoid unnecessary danger. I don't have the guts to risk my life for a stencil. Felicia, I think we can probably do it if we break the tree from the middle. But can you do something with magic? I ask Felicia, fighting back my nausea. I think it's possible if I can draw a circle. Felicia answers me with a pale face. It should be hard to tell with her brown skin, but I can tell at a glance that she is not in good physical shape. She seems unsure of herself, probably because she doubts that she can successfully draw a magic circle under the current circumstances. Felicia's seasickness also seems to be quite dangerous. I'm sorry, But please. I understand that Felicia is in a lot of pain, but I don't want to have to start all over again. So I give her a ruthless master command. With a mighty thud, lightning strikes the center of the tree. The powerful thunderbolt split the tree in half, burning and scorching it, and the vortex current swept the tree left and right. "I'm sorry, Master." Felicia apologizes with a pale expression. She must be sorry because she has failed several times to draw a magic circle. It was the first time I saw Felicia fail at magic, but this time, it couldn't be helped. In fact, it is remarkable that she was able to do it, even if it took a long time. I'm sorry I pushed you too hard, Felicia. No, it's okay. It's no problem, Felicia. Thank you. Yes, Felicia. Don't worry, we can still catch up. I'll take care of it. No, Ins, I don't think Felicia meant it like that. But still, Alessia-san and Marina-san. We were swept away, but they passed us with a smile on their faces. I guess they understand that we are in the middle of a race and that we are in no danger, but it was a little sad to see them go through it. And Ins, with the weight of Pent, it would be difficult to recover from now on, wouldn't it? Without the joy of overcoming the vortex, I immediately summoned the shadow. I jumped onto the magic circle, and all I could picture in my mind was the toilet. It is now a heavenly resting place for me. The shadow comes out of the magic circle, and the long-awaited toilet appears before my eyes, surrounded by light. I release everything with joy. I still feel a bit nervous, but my seasickness has finally subsided after emptying all the contents of my stomach. I went to the main hall where the meeting was to take place with Felicia, who also looked a little refreshed, and Ins, who looked a little frustrated. By the time we arrived at the main hall, everyone had already gathered. It is hard to read their expressions, but Marina-san is in a good mood and is patting Fu-chan. She is the winner of the race. Sitting across from her is Alessia-san, the loser of the race, who looks disappointed. Our seasick friend, Claretta-san, leans back on the sofa and looks tired. It is unusual that Carla-san, who is usually next to me when we get together, is not present. I wondered why, and when I looked for her, I found her eating a light meal with a big mouthful of food. I could see that it must be hard to have someone eat next to you when you are seasick. Just looking at her made me feel something, so I took my eyes off her. Alessia, I am so sorry. At the other end of my distant gaze, Ins was saying some words to Alessia-san. But that expression was definitely upsetting. On the surface, it looks like she's trying to comfort Alessia-san, but her face is so triumphant that I can't help but think she's trying to get on Alessia-san's nerves. Well, the accident with the tree and the disadvantage of Pent's weight. I understand that she is happy because she overtook Alessia-san in a hopeless situation, but it is beyond mature. Besides, it was Alessia-san's own fault that Ins was able to overtake her, so it was not something Ins should be proud of. If Alessia-san had not been so reckless, she would have finished second. After we were pushed by the tree, Alessia-san and Marina-san fought hard for the lead. It was a fierce battle to overtake and be overtaken. Alessia-san was fed up and decided to do something reckless to win the race. I don't know what she did, but she created a huge explosion in the sea, launched her boat into the air, and jumped in front of Marina-san's ship. It looked as if the strange maneuver, which was probably based on Paris' previous launch of the Lotto into the sky with seawater, had succeeded, but the boat failed to land on the water and overturned. The boat was swept away screaming, and third place was decided as it was. It was a very annoying experience for Ilma-san and Carla-san, who were in the same boat. What? Ins lost to Marina, too. Everyone else lost except for the first place. Alessia-san shot back, but this was indeed a bitter pill to swallow. Second place and last place make a very different impression. Fufu. You're a sore loser. Muki. Alessia-san stomps her feet in response to In's challenge. Marina-san watches with a calm expression on her face. It is a picture that clearly separates the winners from the losers. But still, where does Ins come up with all that internet slang? She's not supposed to be connected to the internet, is she? Oops. It looks like it's going to be an all-out brawl. I've appointed myself as a security guard so they won't break out, but I don't want to fight because we have things to discuss. Ins, come back so we can discuss this. Alessia, too, please calm down. Ins comes back with a big smile on her face, and Alessia-san is red-faced and frustrated. Why is that? It was supposed to be a simple discussion to decide the lookout shift, but I had a feeling it wouldn't be an easy decision. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 10, 1120. Chapter 10, Discovery. We got caught in a huge vortex and suffered from seasickness for about 3 days, but the vortex would not go away, and we finally escaped by motorboat. Somehow, a race started, and Alessia-san got reckless, and the boat overturned, but I guess it was good that we got out safely. I threw up, though. Wataru, by our estimation, we could have made it, couldn't we? After escaping the vortex, I thought about the fact that I was spoiled by the ship summoning cheat and let my guard down, so I set up a watch shift. Now it's time for Alessia-san and me to stand guard. Since I set up the watch shift, I have come to love this time when I can enjoy time alone with different types of beautiful women. Not only did I enjoy myself, but I also kept coming up with stories using my knowledge of Japan, so I don't think I would have bored the person I was paired with if I wasn't so selfish. However, the expression on the face of Alessia-san, who I'm currently paired with, is not a flattering look of having a good time, as if to say that I'm lying. I see. I know there are discrepancies because it is based on old documents, but we are getting to the point where it would not be surprising if we had arrived. Or rather, since yesterday, we have passed the place where we could have arrived. My expression in response to Alessia-san's question would also be somber, not wanting to admit the reality of the situation. If it were just my calculations, I could be wrong. But since Ilma-san and I have checked the documents many times and come up with the results, I have a high degree of confidence in them. The sea is the only place to look. Yes, there is nothing but the sea. Yes, we have arrived at the place that should be highly reliable, or rather, we have passed it, but all we can see around us is the sea. There should be a continent. I have a bad feeling about this. Yes, I have a very bad feeling. A lot of things had happened before we reached this point. We had a good watch, and fortunately, it was not an accident like the vortex, which even a ship summoning cheat could not handle, so we were able to sail smoothly, but there were many dangerous places that an ordinary magic ship could not handle. At this point, I had a bad feeling. The fact that there was no mention of such dangers in the documents made me question the authenticity of the documents. However, the documents were so old that they could not be dated, and the dangerous places could change due to changes in the environment. The ship's owner, the Duke, could use some of the sea god's sacred treasures, so it was possible that he could ignore the dangers. So, I had pushed my fears aside and continued the voyage so far, but it was time to look away from reality. At the very least, there was a strong possibility that the environment had changed. Hey, which one do you think it is? Which one? Either the documents we got from the Duke's castle are fake, or a continent that should have existed once has disappeared. These are two very unpleasant choices, but if I haven't made a mistake in my calculations, we might end up with these two choices. The diary and documents of the head of the Duke's family that made me cry my eyes out. I don't want to believe that it was a lie, but it is possible that he wrote a fake diary like a novel, and the other documents were the setting for it. In a sense, it is a black story, so it is not hard to understand why it was kept in a safe. And there is another possibility, a pattern in which a continent that should have existed disappeared. This is also undeniable, which is the scary part of this world. In fact, the Aquamarine Kingdom had a city that sank into the sea, and the Duke's castle also sank deep under the sea. There is a strong possibility that the continent has disappeared. In any case, even the ship summoning power, which I think is too much of a cheat, is only a limited ability in the sense of Creator God Sama. Before the restriction, the people who were given such cheats went on a rampage, so the light-hearted Creator God Sama would have felt the need to restrict them. It would not be surprising if 1 or 2 continents were wiped out. Continents disappearing? I am aware that this is a crazy idea, but the fact that crazy ideas cannot be denied in reality is irredeemable. The most irrevocable thing is that the Creator God Sama of this world is the one who readily grants skills that can make continents disappear or that are too cheaty even though they are supposed to be limited. That's how many times civilization will be destroyed. I don't know. But as crazy as it sounds, I think it's more likely that the continent has disappeared. Normally, the disappearance of a continent is a ridiculous story, and if anyone should have doubts, it should be the documents. But I don't want to believe that the Duke's diary and his painful and sad decision were fictional, and there was nothing impure in his diary, in a sense, to entertain or surprise the readers. I think that's why Felicia, and Alessia-san were crying, as was I. Yes. That's right. I'm sure the diary isn't a lie. Anyway, we can't stay here and worry about it, so let's stop and discuss our future plans. I agree. I don't know what the truth is, but maybe we should consider turning back. The ending is not very satisfying, but if there is no continent, there is no point in staying here. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It's not as clear as the underwater ruins in the Aquamarine Kingdom, but there are some things that look like artifacts. After discussion, it was decided that it would be a waste to leave, and it was decided to investigate the possibility that the continent had sunk into the sea. If the Duke's journal was not a lie, the most likely pattern is that the continent sank into the sea. It is possible that someone with a cheat skill made the continent invisible, or that the continent was erased, but the most likely suspect is the sinking pattern. This is not impossible, as there are underwater ruins in the Aquamarine Kingdom. Thus, the white dolphin reappeared after a long time. We decided to use this submersible to explore the seafloor. While exploring the seafloor, artifacts are sometimes found. We were delighted to discover that the Duke's diary was not entirely false. The next emotion we felt was fear. Is it really like I imagined? Yes, almost certainly. Ilma-san answered my question with a serious expression. I wondered if it was really like I thought. Anyway, since we had no guidelines, we dived down to the bottom of the sea, wandered around it, and found a beautiful mortar-shaped place. I thought it was too neat to be a natural formation, so we examined it and found that it looked like debris, but it turned out to be something that had been touched by human hands in some places. We were happy to find evidence of human existence, although we did not know if it was a continent or not. But the next words from Ilma-san made our attention drop sharply. A huge mortar-shaped terrain spreads out in a radial pattern. This was probably the result of a powerful explosion in the center of the land, which obliterated the entire ground around it. The debris-like artifacts were probably the burned remains of a city or other settlement that had existed here. It turns out that if there had been people here, no one would have survived. Silence reigns on board. Still, we continue our investigation, sad as it is. But it was a long time ago, and we try to change our minds. 2 full days passed. We discovered a number of mortar-shaped features, and at the sites of these features, there were always pieces of artifacts left behind, like burning debris. At the first discovery, I thought it might have been caused by a meteorite, but after so many similar discoveries, I couldn't turn my eyes away from reality. I'm not sure if these mortar-shaped marks are artificial or even human, but clearly, someone's will has intervened, and that someone had attacked and wiped out the villages where people gathered one by one. After that, whether it was the work of someone else or not is not known. But it seems certain that the continent that was supposed to exist has sunk. What do you say? Shall we go home now? If there had been a settlement left on the site, like in the Aquamarine Kingdom, there would have been hope of finding the treasure. But there was nothing we could do if there was nothing left but debris. Every time we find something, we think about the possibility that many people died here, and our spirits drop. Ilma, according to the documents, this continent is quite large, isn't it? Yes, that's right. It seems that it was at least big enough to be called a continent. There are descriptions of several countries, so it must have been as big as our continent. Alessia-san asked, and Ilma-san replied. Alessia-san thinks about something. Then let's look for it. I don't feel comfortable leaving without knowing the cause of the problem. Besides, if the continent is as big as this one, there might be more traces left, and some places might not have sunk at all. Wataru, is that okay with you? Even in such a difficult situation, Alessia-san seems to have no intention of giving up. But, I wonder about it. We've only been able to find traces of people in the mortar-shaped terrain for the past 2 days, so it seems like something, or someone has been trying to destroy people thoroughly. Looking at it that way, it seems useless to search for them, but that doesn't mean that the human race would have been killed without resistance. At the very least, they must have tried to survive. If that is the case, there may be a secret place where they tried to avoid detection, or the damage in this area may have been so severe that they won a victory elsewhere, leaving traces of humanity, and the continent may have sunk after that. Maybe Alessia-san is right, and there are even places that did not sink. The possibility may be small since it was the sea as far as the eye could see, but since we are not pressed for time, it would be tempting to bet on the slightest possibility. Understood. Let's continue our search. Let's do that. Thank you. Wataru. Then, let's decide on a search plan. We're going to search the continent, so we have to be efficient, or we'll waste time. Alessia-san's call brought Dorothea-san and the others back to life. This is what makes Alessia-san such a great leader. *****. 8 days had passed since Alessia-san's order. After splitting into 2 groups, one on the surface and one on the bottom of the sea and running around the western sea in every direction, we found what appeared to be an island in the hazy distance. Striving for the luxury liner, Volume 16 Chapter 11, 1220. Chapter 11, Barrier. But when we arrived at our destination, after overcoming several difficulties that would have been insurmountable without the power of ship summoning, we found that the continent that was supposed to be there had disappeared. We found traces of human presence on the seafloor and continued our search without giving up. As a result, we discovered the shadow of an island in the distance. After discovering the island, we decided to meet with the submersible group to discuss our future course of action. First of all, is that island shadow the part of the continent that escaped the sinking? We were a little relieved to have found land and avoided a complete waste of time, but there is also the possibility of land that has nothing to do with our destination continent. That would be interesting because it was a completely unknown place, but it would also be a little sad because it would make it more likely that the inhabitants the Duke risked his life to let escape had been wiped out. Alma, what do you think? Alessia-san was at a loss as well, so she quickly turned to Ilma-san. Well, I can't say for sure, but there's probably a continent we're looking for, and from the distance, it's probably in the center of the continent. You mean the center of the continent is what's left? That means at least half of the continent is sunk. That's better than the whole thing sinking. But even half is a lot. But then I wonder if we could use some of the information in the diary. I thought the information in the diary might be helpful, but then I changed my mind on the way. Even if it is just old information, the environment has changed too drastically to be of any use. I can't say that it won't be helpful at all, but I think we'd better think of it as something completely different and act accordingly. I know, right? Then there is the question of how to get ashore. Even if there were a harbor, would it be safe to enter through the front door? The original destination was the port where the Duke was trading, but we don't even know if there is a port because not only the port but even the land has disappeared. I mean, there was land, so people survived, right? We don't know the laws of the country, so it's dangerous to go in head-on. Yes. If we're not careful, we could be captured the moment we enter. First, let's wait until night and look for lights. Once we find them, we can watch them from a distance and then sneak around. While I was having scary thoughts, the conversation continued, focusing on Alessia-san, Dorothea-san, and Ilma-san. It seems that Alessia-san and the others have no doubt that humans will survive. No, I wonder if they just assume that humans exist because if humans don't exist, there's no need to worry about being harmed by humans. Well, they seem to be trying to be cautious, and whatever happens, won't be so terrible. It was easy to find. Yes, indeed. As a result of our discussion, we decided to rely on lights at night to search for the human settlements, but before we could even look for them, as night fell, the lights shone on land. Marina-san, who was searching with me on the flight deck, did not expect it to be so easy to find, and I could see that she had a look of disappointment on her face, even in the dark. When I answered her, I probably made the same face. It was good that we had turned off the light, just in case. Wataru, you can see it, can't you? Alessia-san came up to the flight deck, apparently having found the same lights below. Yes, I can see them. Anyway, we landed in a place away from the lights, as we had decided. So we'll just sneak around and do some recon. Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. We found it too easy, and the adventure factor faded, but smooth sailing is not a bad thing. Let's change our minds. We slowly make our way toward land, circling to keep our distance from the lights. The lights are out here, too, so the reefs are scary. But the ship summoning has an indestructible effect, so we can move the ship quite comfortably. Bang! Whoa! Kaya! The ship shakes violently, accompanied by a dull sound. It seems to have hit something. I managed to stop myself with my right hand as I was about to hit the pilot's seat from the impact, and I reflexively caught Remo, who was blown off my head by the impact, with my left hand. Remo, are you okay? It was fun. Phew. This is such a shock. I knows there is nothing wrong with Remo, but it chilled my heart. Well, Despite my concern, Rimmer is shaking on my hand, but anyway, it was a nice catch. I might make it as a baseball player now. Hey, Wataru. I don't blame you for worrying about Rimmer-chan, but isn't there someone else you should be worrying about? While I was relieved that Rimmer was safe, I heard a slightly angry voice. No, it was natural for me to worry about Rimmer, but I should have quickly worried about Alessia-san, Marina-san, and the female members below to earn their favor here. Hey Alessia, Marina, are you okay? Yes. Thanks to you, I don't have any scratches. I'm fine. Haha, thank goodness. I thought it was too late. But believing in miracles, I called out to them. The only thing that came back was a cold voice. I was too late. I had failed. If I may make an excuse, it's that while I'm safe, I don't think anything can happen to the women, who are much stronger than I am. In fact, both Alessia-san and Marina-san were fine, and Marina-san was just as worried about Fu-chan as I was. But I couldn't say anything because if I made such an excuse, my likability would immediately drop to the bottom of the barrel. It would be better to just apologize to her without saying a word. Fufu. I'm just kidding. Are you okay, Wataru? Yes, I'm fine. I was prepared to fall to my knees in the worst case scenario, but Alessia-san laughed as she called out to me. The power in her voice was too much for a joke. But there was no need to plunge into the minefield. I'd take her word for it. For now, let's go down and see what we hit. Yeah. Sure. Okay. As I was about to descend from the flight deck with Alessia-san and Marina-san, Dorothea-san came up from below. What did we hit? Alessia-san asked. It's a barrier. It might cause some trouble. Barrier? It wasn't the ship summoning barrier, was it? Does that mean there were barriers ahead? Yeah, Alma's looking into it. But I'm pretty sure it was a barrier. Seriously, if there are barriers, that means we cannot go in. Right? Then shouldn't we run away instead of just relaxing here? That's what I wanted to talk to you about. The barriers might have magic to detect contact, and if we rush to escape from the mysterious ship, we will alarm them even more, right? Since we are on Wataru's ship, our safety is assured, and it would not be a bad idea to see how they react to us. Well, I think it would be better to run away, scout safely from another place, and enter the human settlement later. But I also think it would be bad to keep the other side on alert. If the worst happens and we are attacked by the other side and our personal safety is assured, is it not a bad idea to watch their reaction, as Dorothea-san said? Well, it would be best if we could enter the human settlement without being found. Well, I wouldn't mind that. What about you, Wataru? I have no idea what the right answer is. Well, it's safe to say that it's better to stay here and listen to what they have to say than to run away and cause trouble. If they attack us, we can just run away. I'm fine with standing by, too. But just be ready to run. We should at least have our equipment ready and change the direction of the ship so that we can move at any time. *****. The lights. They're all gone. The last light went out right in front of Claretta-san and me as we stood guard on the flight deck. Yes. They're all gone. We had waited 4 hours. The lights went out one by one, but nothing else had changed, and all the lights had just gone out. It was not as if all the lights went out at once, or more lights were added as a precaution, but rather the lights went out capriciously, one by one. It was as if the lights were turned off because it was time to go to bed. It seemed as if the lights were going out erratically. I wondered if they didn't know we were here. It's possible that they do, but they don't care. Claretta-san and I looked at each other. The other party's movement is too little, so it's too hard to judge. For now, let's go downstairs to report. That's right. I'll stay here and keep an eye on things, so Wataru, please report back for me. Roger. I'll also bring you some drinks and snacks. Yes, please. I left the watch with Claretta-san and went downstairs to find Ilma-san checking the barrier and Felicia assisting her. Did you find out anything new? Master, thank you for your hard work. I am sorry to say that we have found nothing new. Ilma-san was so engrossed in her analysis that she didn't seem to notice me, and Felicia answered my question apologetically. I see nothing is known about this. Felicia is more than competent in the art of barrier. Ilma-san is able to read and interfere with even dungeon barriers. It's not fancy for these two to investigate for 4 hours and come up with nothing, is it? After all this time, I feel like running away. I think I should report to Alessia-san that all the lights are out for now and ask her if it is possible to run away again. Striving for the luxury liner, Volume 16 Chapter 12, 1320. Chapter 12, Disembarkation. Finally, we found land. We tried to sneak up on it in the darkness of the night to check out the situation there, but before we could reach the land, we were blocked by the barriers. We could have run away, but we decided to wait there to see how they would react. There was no response even after all the lights on the land went out. What do we do now? After contacting the barriers, we waited until almost noon to be sure, but the result was the same. To be honest, I was very sad to feel neglected. Well, I guess we'll have to do something about the barrier or move along the land and find a place to land. Alessia-san answered my question, but even she seemed at a loss as to what to do with so little information. Ilma, can you do anything about the barriers? Or rather, even if we can do something about it, is it really okay? If there are barriers, they want to prevent anyone from coming in, right? I feel that it would be inconvenient for us to go in. At this point, it's difficult to interfere with the barrier at all. Ilma-san gave us an unexpected answer. Even Ilma-san, who can analyze the barriers of the dungeon itself, can't deal with the barriers that are set up. Isn't that a bit unfashionable? Ilma, can you explain this? Alessia-san, perhaps not expecting such an answer, asked Ilma-san for an explanation. Well, to put it simply, it's a different system of magic, and the magic power it contains is so different that I can't handle it. Is it like the ship summoning barrier? If so, it is the power of Creator God Sama. No, it's not as confusing as the ship barrier. It is different, but I have a feeling that if we continue to analyze it, we will eventually understand it. And it may be that the technology on this side of the continent is quite advanced, or that the old technology is still highly advanced. It seems that Creator God Sama had nothing to do with it. I was a little relieved but also bothered by the fact that the matter of his hidden smile remained a mystery. That's the difference in technology, right? Is it like a feature phone on this side and a smartphone on that side? I don't know if that's the right word, but there seems to be a significant difference in technology. It seems like we have to be very careful. I see, so we can't do anything about the barrier right now, can we? Yes, it would be difficult to do anything about it even if we had 10 or 20 days, let alone right now. From the conversation between Alessia-san and Ilma-san, it was clear that there was nothing that could be done about the barrier. I guess the only option left is to move and find a place to land. If we move, will we wait until night again? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. No matter how much we moved, the barrier was unbroken. We were so neglected that we decided to look for a place to land without hiding, but no matter how much we moved, the barrier never stopped. The land we saw during the day was so rich in nature that if we had not seen the lights last night, we might have doubted that anyone was there. Even though we began our search in the late afternoon, it was unexpected that we could drive the Lotto until nightfall, and the barrier would remain unbroken. How big are these barriers? Or rather, is it possible for humans to build such a large barrier? So far, we have only learned that the land is rich in nature, that the barrier is unusually large, and that this land is an island or a peninsula. If it is an island, it must be much larger than Dark Elf Island because we finally reached the backside of the island after half a day of running around. It's completely dark, so I guess it's time to eat. And after eating, maybe explore by light. I'm used to living on a ship, but it's sad that I can't take a single step ashore, even though there's land right in front of me. Wataru, Wataru, over there. As the boat coasted along, I was thinking about what I was going to have for dinner tonight when Carla-san, looking very excited, started making a commotion and pointed in a direction directly opposite to land. When I looked in the direction Carla-san was pointing, I could see a strong shining light, although it seemed quite far away. It looks like we have more options now. Carla, it's almost time for dinner, so let's go downstairs for a report and have dinner. Dinner? Carla-san nodded her head in delight and hurriedly climbed down from the flight deck. It was quite a discovery, but it seems the only thing on Carla-san's mind now is food. Wataru, dinner. As I smile at Carla-san, whose eyes sparkle at the thought of food even though she is a beautiful woman of a certain age, Rima, who was on top of my head, also begins to twitch intensely at the word dinner. There are a lot of gluttons around me, aren't there? Today's dinner is cup noodles. It's a quick meal because of the progress we've made, but it's a comforting item when you're short on time. It also feels like an adventure, so it tastes even better when I eat it at a time like this. My current mood is seafood cup noodles. After waiting 2.5 minutes for the noodles to reach the desired texture, I slurp them down in one gulp, then bite into the onigiri with a mouthful of the cheap but delicious seafood broth. It's the best. Now that I have a luxury liner, I can easily eat rich food, but I can't stop eating this kind of food that looks bad for my health forever. If you keep eating them, you get tired of them, but I think cup noodles have an addictive quality. There's no end in sight for the barrier over here on land, so let's go to the light that Carla discovered. After quickly finishing the cup noodles, Carla-san, Rimmer, and the other slimes ate more and more cup noodles like a bowl of noodles, but Alessia-san made a simple decision. We, who were tired of the endless barrier, accepted her decision without any objection. Once that was decided, the story went quickly. Leaving the gluttons to continue eating their cup noodles, we moved to the flight deck and launched the Lotto toward the light. It was the light from the lighthouse. Dorothea-san was right. The light that appeared strong even from a distance was the light of a lighthouse. The lighthouse was built at the end of a cove, and inside the cove was a harbor with a number of wooden boats anchored. The stone walls at the end of the harbor were visible, and it seemed to be a rather large port city. Do you want to go further into the harbor? No, the same as yesterday. Let's go ashore from a distance and see what happens. Well, that's right. Even if the place changes, it is still an unknown land, so there is no reason to change our behavior from yesterday. Would we be able to land without being blocked by the barriers this time? I changed the course of the Lotto and approached the land while turning around to move away from the harbor. The land we explored during the day was blocked by barriers in this area, but there are no barriers. We arrived at the land without being blocked by the barriers, and Marina-san quickly jumped onto the land. She must have gone out to explore the area. Felicia, Dorothea-san, and I also get off the flight deck and prepare to land. Since we had been delayed on the previous landing, we were all excited, and our actions were quick, although we were careful not to make any noise. After 30 minutes of waiting and getting everything ready, suddenly, Marina-san appears out of the darkness and waves us over. There seems to be no security problem. Let's go, Alessia-san whispers, and we take turns jumping onto the land. Marina, how was it? Alessia-san asked Marina-san about the results of the scouting, not at all impressed that we had landed on an unknown continent. There are no traces of violent monsters in the area. The harbor is nearby, and there is a road ahead, so even if there were monsters, I think the strong ones would have been hunted down in this area. I see. Have you checked the harbor? Yes. It is a big city. The walls are very impressive, and there are many soldiers guarding them. I also heard them talking, but I couldn't understand a word. There was a lot of information even though only about 30 minutes had passed. The atmosphere I heard was that it was a large port city like Lucca. The fact that Marina-san, who studied with Ilma-san, doesn't understand the language means that the language has probably changed a lot over time. I am glad that there might be a place for me as an interpreter, but I am getting nervous at the thought of standing in the face of an arrow and negotiating in an unknown place. Is it safe to enter the harbor by ship? The guards are on high alert. It is safer to go to a small village to gather information than to enter a large city. This is probably the safest thing to do. If you get into trouble in a big city, it's hard to get through. In a small village, there is a good chance that there is no one as experienced as Alessia-san and the others, and it will be safer. I understand. Wataru, I'd like to go in the opposite direction of the port and look for the village if that's all right. Right now? Yes. I want to have an idea of where we are going before it gets light. Moving in the dark? Huh? If we used the ad or the ranger, it would be easy to get around on land, but as you can imagine, I know we can't use them in the current situation. It would certainly be safer to return to the Lotto and search for a small village by boat. But if there is a path, it would be safer, and we could get more information that way. There don't seem to be any monsters we can't defeat, do there? My mind was made up, but I would check with Marina-san just to be sure. Well, if Ins, Felicia, Alessia-san, and others are in a place where it is impossible to travel safely, the road and the village will not exist. But it is necessary to confirm just in case, because it's scary. I can't say for sure, but I don't feel any sign of them. Marina-san's senses are reliable. I understand. Then let's look for a small village. Understood. Marina, please go ahead and scout. We will move around Wataru. After seeing Marina-san leave ahead of us, we followed Alessia-san's instructions and started moving in formation. It is usually scary to move in total darkness without lights. I wondered if we would make it. There's a village ahead. After 4 hours of moving with breaks in between, Marina-san returns and gives us a pleasant report. We stumbled in the previous land, but it looks like we are off to a good start in this one. I'll do my best as an interpreter as well. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 13 1420 Chapter 13, Information Gathering. The first land was blocked by barriers, but we were able to land safely on the second. We decided to have Marina-san scout ahead of us and gather information from a small village for safety. I'm the only one who understands the language at the moment, so I have to do my best. We reached the village before dawn. I thought we would wait until dawn to enter the village, but I was told that entering the village first thing in the morning would look suspicious, so we had to wait. It seems that the village and the place to camp are somewhat fixed, and although there is a difference between walking and taking a horse-drawn carriage, the time when the village becomes lively is also somewhat fixed. In other words, it seems that if we enter the village at any other time, we will stand out. I told Dorothea-san, who shared her knowledge with me, that it was a great learning experience, and she expressed concern, saying that it was a basic rule for adventurers and peddlers. I was aware of my lack of knowledge, having spent most of my life on ships or in port cities, but it seems I am still inexperienced in even basic knowledge. While waiting, I watched the village and noticed that the villagers began to move at sunrise. It seems that even in other worlds, morning comes early in the countryside, and I could watch the villagers heading out to the fields. Apparently, there is not much difference in race here either, with the familiar humans and beastmen making up the majority. Since the beastmen were participating in the fieldwork as usual, it is pretty reassuring to know that there seems to be no discrimination against beastmen, at least in this area. Also, since it was a bit chilly, it seems that long sleeves are the basic clothing around here. About 2 hours after dawn, people arrived from the port city by horse and wagon. It seems that this village is the first resting place for travelers, and they leave the village after a short rest. Perhaps because it is connected to a large port city, there seemed to be a lot of tolls. 2 hours later, the village became even busier, with peddlers and travelers on foot arriving from the port city and people on horses and carriages arriving from the other side. It seemed that walking, carriages, and horses were the basic means of transportation, and that the civilizations were not so different. We changed into less conspicuous clothes, and except for the fact that no one but me could speak the language and that we had no currency, we seemed to be able to move around without any problems. What do you say? Should we get going? If we were going to the port city, it would be better to wait for people coming on foot from the other side, but if our goal was to gather information, it would be better to enter the village when there were more people there. Well, it is time to go. Please. There is no hurry to join the others, so don't push yourself too hard. It seemed I was right, and Alessia-san gave me the green light. I was getting nervous. Okay, I understand. Then Marina, let's go. Yes. After Felicia set up the barriers, we walked out onto the road together and headed for the village. Normally, it would have been safer for all of us to go to the village together, but a group of beautiful women would have been conspicuous in the village, and it would have been difficult to gather information if we got mixed up with others, so it was decided that Marina-san and I would gather the information together. During our discussion, I suggested that I should go alone in case we were afraid of being noticed, but they warned me in a very gentle tone that I should go with Marina-san. I felt that if I thought about it too deeply, it would hurt me badly, so I silently accepted it, but even without thinking about it deeply, I could tell that they were worried about me, and that made me sad. Remembering the sad memories, I lowered my tension and proceeded with the air of a normal traveler, entering the village with a nonchalant look on my face. Although I knew from previous observations that people were rarely stopped, I was relieved that we were able to pass through the village without incident. Shall we go to where the people are gathered? Yes. I called Marina-san and approached the crowd. The village is small, but they seem to be taking advantage of the large number of pedestrians. They have built a square to make it easy to take a break, with 2 shops lining the side of the square. One sells simple snacks and drinks, while the other sells general merchandise. Wataru, this way. As I looked around the shops, Marina-san pulled me by the sleeve and led me to a corner of the square. Sit down. It seemed like we were going to sit here and gather information. It is a rather conspicuous place, but perhaps such a place is less suspicious than a place to hide in secret. Wataru, translate what that group over there is saying. I looked in the direction Marina-san had indicated and saw a horse-drawn carriage, its owner, a merchant, and two men, one of whom seemed to be an adventurer, chatting over a drink. They seemed like a good group to gather information from. I would be grateful if I could get some information about the shop or the adventurers. I understand, I replied to Marina-san, listening carefully. We should reach the city of Toyon before nightfall. Suddenly, I knew the name of the city. I guessed that Toyon was the name of a large port city. Yes, finally. It was a long trip this time, but I am relieved to be back in one piece. What are you going to do when you get to the city? It's a big city, so I'm thinking of using Toyon as a base for work for a while. Well, then, I may have another opportunity to ask you to do some work for me. I'll look forward to working with you then. Well, I'd be very grateful. I'll be waiting for you with great anticipation. I examined the content of the conversation while translating it in a whisper to Marina-san. It seems that the relationship between the merchant and the two adventurers is good. From the way the two adventurers talk, it seems that there is a lot of work for adventurers in the city. It's a big city, so I'm sure the goods I bring will be sold, and worst of all, we can make money as adventurers, which is great. So tell me something, Dana. While I was translating the conversation for Marina-san, one of the adventurers spoke to the merchant in a happy tone. He seemed a bit excited. What is it? Well, this is our first visit to Toyon, and we'd be more excited about the job if you could give us some information about the red light district. I think one of the adventurers started a very important conversation. Hey, you said you wanted to make it your base. Did you? No, Dana, we work hard and play hard at night. Yeah, work and play. I think it's very important to have a good balance between the two. Well, if it means you get more energy for work, then I guess it can't be helped. I recommend. What? It was in a very good part, and then I felt a tug on my sleeve. Marina-san, is something wrong? I'm in the middle of something important, so please don't interrupt me. Wataru, translate. I was so focused that I forgot to translate. Sorry, I'll translate for you right now. Huh? Should I translate the information about the red light district? Me to Marina-san? That's a punishment. Well, how should I say it? It's peculiar to men, it's a bit of vulgar talk. Should I interpret it? I feel like it's just sexual harassment, but maybe I can understand the local customs. Or maybe the original cultural meaning of the customs. Huh? I'm confused. Should I translate it? No need. Let's change the place. That's right. But I wanted to hear it. *****. We continued to gather information from different locations, peeking into shops to avoid suspicion. We were never able to pinpoint exactly what we wanted to know, but as our visits increased, we were able to glean some useful information. We learned that in order to enter the city of Toyon, we needed to have an identification or an entrance fee. The merchants were escorted by mercenaries, not adventurers, and it seemed that the mercenaries also did the work of adventurers. The security of the area, prices of goods and drinks. Although I could not get any information about the red light district, I think I was able to get at least a minimum amount of information. Now that we have gathered information, the next step is money. We might be able to replace the entrance fees with monsters like I did when I first came to this world, but it would definitely be less noticeable if we paid them in the usual way. If possible, I would like to at least earn the entrance fee for Toyon in this village. Marina-san seemed to have no problem with it, so we went to the small general store. Hello, can I help you? I enter the store and talk to the owner. He seems like a nice guy, and I feel like I can get by even though I'm just a fake merchant. No, I'm a peddler. Do you want to see my products? We are a small general store, and we have our own suppliers. If you want to do business, you should visit Toyon, which is one stop away, not here. It seems I wasn't wrong in my impression that the man seemed nice, and he gave me some simple advice. I appreciate the advice very much, but the fact that he has a specific place to stock is not a happy piece of information. It might be better to be upfront about the fact that I'm in trouble here and invite sympathy. Yes, of course, I intend to go all the way to Toyon, but I'm ashamed to say that I've spent too much money on supplies, and I don't have enough money for the entrance fee. I'll give you a discount, so would you be willing to buy some for me? Ah, You haven't been peddling for very long, have you? You have to calculate your expenses on the road before you buy goods. The man looked immediately convinced. Perhaps it is common for inexperienced peddlers to run out of money when they make the mistake of buying the wrong amount of goods. Ha ha ha, yes, I'll be careful from now on. I understand, let me see your goods. But as you can see, this is a small store, so I can't buy expensive things. Thank you. I thanked him and placed the items I had prepared on the counter. Camille-san had told me that it was better to start with cheap and easy to sell items, and since she had prepared a variety of items for me, I had no trouble finding things to sell, even in this situation. I am grateful for Camille-san's keen eye. Besides, I didn't know what kind of products to sell, so my decision to throw everything at Camille-san was also a good game. Wow, all these items are simple but of good quality. I can see why you'd go into trouble for stocking a lot. The quality of the goods seems to be very good as well. Is something wrong? Yes, I want this cookware, this tableware, and this comb. But they are a little too good for village use. Camille-san, you've prepared some good quality items at a reasonable price. But the irony is that the quality is dragging them down. Business is tough. I can't even enter the town without paying the entrance fee, so I'll give you a discount on this occasion. So please buy it. If you're a merchant, you shouldn't show your weakness so easily, even when you're in trouble, and you shouldn't make any concessions in negotiating the price from the beginning. Why? When I said I would give him a discount, he warned me. Listen, you know, in business. He even started talking about being a merchant. Are you listening? Oh, yeah, I'm listening. I didn't mind taking a little loss, I just wanted some money. How did I end up like this? Striving for the luxury liner, Volume 16 Chapter 14. 1520. Chapter 14. Toyon. The small village I visited to gather information seemed to be a transit point to a larger port city, and I was able to gather the minimum information necessary. Next, I went to a general store to get some currency that could be used in this country, and for some reason, the man in the general store taught me how to be a merchant. I learned from him how to be a merchant and was able to sell my goods at a reasonable price. The amount I received was 80,000 sigs. The unit of currency in this country is sig, and although the pattern of the currency is different, it seems to be the same as on the continent of Eltrude. With the minimum amount of money and information safely in hand, we left the village and met up with Alessia-san and the others. The only thing left was the information I got when Wataru couldn't translate. After Marina-san finished her report, all eyes turned to me. When she says when I couldn't translate, she means when I was doing business. Most of the time I was in the mindset of a merchant, but I was able to get a fair amount of information. I begin my report with a slight puffing of my chest. I worked pretty hard, so I have a fair amount of confidence. As I listened to the uncle's advice on how to prepare for the trip, I asked a few questions in between. Most of the questions were about the port city of Toyon, but the man was not averse to answering them. He looked at me as if he had experienced such a time in his life, so I guess he felt like a volunteer for the inexperienced merchants. It was a time when people's goodness was sinking in. So as not to waste his kindness, let's report it properly. I see, with the money you get, even a cheap hotel will only last a few days, and the port fee is even more expensive. Yes, that's right. 80,000 sig is not exactly a small amount of money, but there are a lot of people in this group. Even if we brought our own food, we would run out of money in a few days. Even if we saved, the uncle told me about a store in Toyon, so it is possible to get additional funds, but if we want to do business in a big city, there is a high probability that we will need identification. If we don't do this, we will soon run out of money. Even if we run out of money, we can get by if we leave the city and live on the ship, but if we want to learn the language and get used to the local culture, it is more efficient to live in the city. It is a difficult problem to solve. Should I start with small businesses or do big businesses to get all the money at once? Since we have a wide variety of products, from spices to treasures, we can do almost any kind of business. Right, but it would be better not to make so much money all at once because it would be too noticeable. I don't want to lose to them in terms of ability, but since we don't speak the language, the troublesome matters will be concentrated on Wataru. I was so happy to hear Alessia-san's concern that I couldn't help but smile. I'm very light, aren't I? In this situation, I would like to say, don't worry, leave it to me. but it's hard to deal with 1,000 merchants from all over the world by myself. Even if I could handle a normal business meeting to some extent, I would not be able to handle a situation like the one I had to deal with when I was on the Japanese-style boat because I would not be able to handle the situation. In that case, I think it would be better to do more detailed business. I'll register with the Merchant Guild first, and Ins, Felicia, Alessia-san, and the others will act as my escorts. Fufu, Master, for a newly registered merchant, your escort is quite luxurious. Ins laughed and pointed out the biggest problem. I think so. Whether we do big business or not, the mere presence of a group of women will certainly make us stand out, and men are attracted to a group of beautiful women. It's a surefire way to get into trouble. There's also the problem of funds, so let's limit the number of people until we get used to it. Alessia-san and the others are aware of their good looks, so they regretfully suggest limiting the number of people. But it's not a bad suggestion. They are beautiful women, so they will stand out no matter where they are, but it will definitely be less noticeable if there are fewer of them, and if there are fewer of them, they can move around more stealthily. That might be a good idea. The moment I said that, the air around us became tense. Huh? Why is everyone looking at each other in alarm? I'm the leader, so of course I'll go. As a slave, I shouldn't be separated from my master, right? Following Alessia-san's words, Ind also makes a statement that I don't understand. What is she talking about when she is usually so unconcerned about being away from me? While I was puzzled, the women exchanged heated arguments. I see, they all want to go to an unknown city, especially Alessia-san and the others who said they became adventurers because they wanted to see places they didn't know. So I guess they were even more determined to go there. Even the reserved Carla-san and Claretta-san were adamant that they would go themselves. It's going to be a long journey. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. We finally arrived. Well, it took longer than I thought. Fufu, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. We finally arrived at the port city of Toyon and lined up at the gate. After a fierce competition, Dorothea-san, Ilma-san, and Marina-san were chosen to accompany me. Considering safety and cost savings, we decided on 4 people, including me. Rimo and the other familiars were to remain on the ship for the time being. The first to be chosen was Marina-san. Marina-san, who is a scout and can eliminate presence, was easily chosen because she could not be left behind at a time like this. Next was Ilma-san. She was chosen next because she could learn the language faster than anyone else. She won by a landslide, slicing through the other members with a knife of words. Only 1 seat remained. In the midst of tremendous tension, Felicia was the first to be eliminated. The reason was that there were no dark elves in the village, and we didn't know how dark elves were treated in this country, so she couldn't help herself. Next to leave was Ins. She tried to take advantage of the fact that she was my slave, so it was natural for her to stay with me. But she was crushed by a very sincere and merciless argument that Ins was not allowed because she might do something unnecessary. The 4 remaining were Alessia-san, Dorothea-san, Carla-san, and Claretta-san. It was a fierce battle, but Carla-san, who is not very talkative, and Claretta-san, who is more reserved, were weak in verbal battles, so it was a one-on-one battle between Alessia-san and Dorothea-san. I thought that the leader, Alessia-san, had the advantage. But to my surprise, the sub-leader, Dorothea-san, won. The deciding factor was the difference in their daily behavior. Alessia-san is someone who is followed, while Dorothea-san is someone who follows. Dorothea-san is usually the one who takes the lead, but when it comes down to it, the side she follows is stronger, and in the end, Alessia-san looks like she is about to cry and admit defeat. It took a long time to get to Toyon, and the members who stayed behind had to wait for the luxury liner on the open sea, so it took time to move again, and it was decided that we would go to Toyon the next day. After overcoming such hardships, we arrived at Toyon. I was moved by the sight of the people there. Wataru, it's almost time to go, so please do your best. Dorothea-san's voice brought me back to reality. I knew that from now on, I was in charge. I have to escort everyone and prove that I'm a reliable guy. Next, when I heard the call, I went to the gatekeeper. Identification, please. I have no identification. Without identification, you will be required to pay a 5 sig entrance fee and be inspected with a magic tool. After listening to the gatekeeper's explanation, It seems that there is not much difference from Western City in terms of how to deal with the situation of not having identification. Yes, that's fine. I'll pay it along with the 3 behind me. I tried to give the gatekeeper 20 cigs at once, but he stared at the back without looking at me. Yes, I get it. They've changed their equipment and clothing to be less conspicuous, but that doesn't hide the beauty of Dorothea-san and the others. I can't help but be amazed. Excuse me, please pay the fee and be inspected. The gatekeeper kept looking at Dorothea-san and the others during the procedure. Usually, I would boast in my heart that they are my friends, but under the current circumstances, I have nothing but fear for the future. The gatekeeper didn't call out to me because he was at work, but from now on, I'll have to steel my nerves against the pickup men. I begin to lose my confidence. I walked through the city gate with slumped shoulders. Hey, looks like there's a lot more ancient technology left here. I heard Ilma-san's impressed voice as I walked in a dejected mood. It didn't seem that different in the small village. But was it different in the big city? Curious, I also walked around the city but couldn't see much difference. Ilma-san, what's the difference? Don't you know? Yes, I feel the vibrancy of a port city, but I don't see much difference. Look at the window. Windows? They are normal windows, aren't they? Oh. They use glass-like things for windows. I didn't feel uncomfortable because windows are normally used on luxury liners, but back there, the windows were wooden planks and unprotected when open. That's right. Besides the window panes, there are a number of magic tools used in small details. I see. If magic tools are used so extensively on a daily basis, it would be profitable to buy them cheaply and give them to Camille-san. You two are talking too loudly. You both speak in different languages, so please lower your voices. Oops, that's right. I looked at Dorothea-san, who had warned us, apologized, and started to walk away. My destination was, I wanted to ask at the gate for the location of the Merchants Guild, but I forgot to ask. Well, it didn't help that I wasn't in the mood to ask, even if I had remembered under the circumstances. Anyway, I decided to ask someone who looked like a local about the location of the Merchants Guild. I asked a lady who was passing by, and she immediately told me the location of the Merchants Guild. Things went quite well. All I had to do was register with the guild and ask for a recommendation for an inn, and that would be the end of my mission for the day. At this rate, the day may soon come when Dorothea-san and the others will recognize me as a man they can count on. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 15 1620 Chapter 15 Merchants Guild. After gathering information in a small village, we decided to infiltrate the port city of Toyon with a limited number of people for financial and covert reasons. The 4 members were myself, Dorothea-san, Ilma-san, and Marina-san. For now, the 4 of us would like to establish a firm foothold so that we can fully enjoy our adventures or sightseeing in this country. There are a lot of beastmen here, Marina-san muttered as we made our way to the Merchants Guild. Many beastmen. I had not paid attention to the ratio of the races, but after checking again, it seems that there is indeed a large percentage of beastmen. But that doesn't mean that humans are discriminated against, and it might be a good city where everyone can live comfortably. As I walked around the city, I noticed subtle differences from the cities I have been to, such as a different ratio of races. It may just be in this country, but it seems that people like the color red, and red is used in different parts of the city. Well, what if they like red? I don't think so, but a merchant is a merchant, even if he's a fake merchant. I thought to myself, if people like red, then red products will sell. Perhaps my merchant level was raised by the fact that I learned how to be a merchant in the small village general store. As I walked along, vowing to cherish this simple inspiration, I arrived at the large building the lady had told me about. It was the Merchants Guild. Well, let's go inside. After we register, they will introduce us to an inn and then we will move on. I told them our future plans just in case, and after Dorothea-san and the others nodded their heads in agreement, we went inside. Noisy. This was my first impression of the guild. The interior of the guild is not so different from the southern city. There is a reception desk, a business meeting room, and all the other necessities of doing business. What is different is the enthusiasm of the merchants. Although it is supposed to be a merchants guild, I felt like I had walked into a marketplace. Everyone is passionate about the business and wants to make a name for themselves. I feel a kind of excitement. Apart from the merchants, The receptionist and the merchants are arguing with each other. I don't understand why the receptionists have to argue with them, which scares me. It's a kind of atmosphere that I don't like very much. It's like being a deep-rooted otaku who has wandered into a hardcore cheering section. What should I do? I don't think I can make it here. I want to turn around and run back to the open sea, but when I look behind me, I see beautiful women happily observing their surroundings. I couldn't show them how bad I looked in front of them. I pushed down my trembling knees, pretending that nothing is wrong, and make my way to the reception desk. So far all the desks are occupied. There are a few men sitting at the counter, but most of them are beautiful women. It seems that the system of hiring beautiful women as receptionists is the same in this country. Normally, I would have preferred to sit at the counter with a beautiful woman, but this time, I gave priority to kindness. Ease of conversation is more important than beauty. If possible, I would like to sit at a counter with an older man who seems friendly and does not need to be bothered. Contrary to my wish, there were only 2 seats at the counter where male employees sat. My luck, I groaned. It has improved a little since I came to the other world, but considering my original bad luck with women, I should be able to get one of those 2 seats. There is a rattling sound, and the merchant walks away with a frustrated look on his face. And the merchant's partner was a woman. She also looked somewhat accomplished and satisfied with her work. I look around the guild to see if there are any other merchants on their way to the counter, but no one is there, especially at a time like this. Then, my eyes met the woman behind the counter. "Please come this way," her gaze says. I admit defeat. Normally, I would run to the counter with joy, but my steps were heavy, and I sat down in the empty seat. Hello there. It's nice to meet you. I bite my lip nervously. Foo. Yes, hello. It's nice to meet you too. After a strange smile, the receptionist greeted me in a friendly manner. Huh? Is she unexpectedly friendly? I was afraid because she chased the merchant away so forcefully, but she seemed fine as long as it was not a business meeting. Yes, well, let's see. I would like to join the guild. Is that possible? I don't even have an identification card. But, feeling a little more at ease, I told her straight out what my original purpose was. If you don't have an identification card, do you come from an area where there are no guilds? Why yes. Since I am from Japan, there were no guilds. Probably. Do you have a temporary ticket? A ticket? Yes. They gave me the ticket after the inspection. I guess they want to make sure I have no criminal record. Yes. I took the ticket out of my pocket and showed it to the receptionist. Everything is in order. I will now explain to you how to become a member. The receptionist checked the ticket and began to speak with a smile. First of all, you must pay an entrance fee of 100,000 sigs to join the Merchants Guild. The first explanation revealed that I didn't have enough money. Should I apologize and leave? I mean, isn't the entrance fee expensive? In the meantime, I've brought some goods to get additional funds, but I'd like to do business after gathering information if possible. But it's easier to do business if I have identification, isn't it? Even though I can substitute the ticket I got at the gate, an official identification is definitely more trustworthy. What should I do? In any case, I should listen to the whole explanation and then make a decision. But I think it would look bad to say I don't have enough money after the explanation, so I'll apologize first. I'm sorry, but I don't have enough money, but I have a way to get the money, so may I ask you to explain to the end? I see. Yes, that's fine. I will continue the explanation. Please do. She nodded her head without a single look of displeasure. She seemed to be a nice person, as long as it was not a business meeting. There are 10 ranks in the Merchants Guild. It starts at the 10th rank, and the first rank is the highest. Promotion is determined by how much tax you have paid. The tax is basically 30% of the net profit of the business that the Merchants Guild mediates. Hey, so, this one uses numbers to represent ranks. Is it my imagination that an S-rank merchant and a first-rank merchant are about the same? S-rank seems cooler though. Also, the way they determine rank is very different. Over there, it was determined by how much you paid in annual fees. But over here, it's the amount of taxes you pay, 30% of net income. I guess that's cheap in a fantasy world, huh? If you use the Merchants Guild as your middleman, does that mean you don't pay taxes unless you use the Merchants Guild as your middleman? If I'm a peddler or something, it's impossible to use the Merchants Guild as the middleman every time, right? There are many villages that don't have Merchants Guilds. Of course, not every business can be handled by the Merchants Guilds, especially in the case of peddling. It is impossible. But that is something the government has already taken into account. Has it been taken into account? I know it's just my imagination, but it seems like an unusual situation for the government to overlook the tax. Yes, the main purpose is to stabilize logistics, although there is also the aspect of not being able to follow up. Peddling is dangerous, so the government thinks it is necessary to have that level of benefit. I see. So if you want merchants to go to the countryside, there must be some benefit. I was soberly convinced. Besides, even though there is almost no tax, most merchants pay tax on their own returns. Could it be that people in this country are super nice? The ranks of the merchants' guilds are determined by the amount of taxes paid. And to own a shop, you need to be at least 7th rank. So from a credit standpoint, the rank of the guild is important. Then you understand the rest? The receptionist says with a smile. I see. A merchant who wants to open a shop will pay at least the 7th rank tax, and if it is related to the size of the business, the more ambitious the merchant is, the more properly he will pay the tax. If a merchant is satisfied with just peddling his goods, he is willing to give up his business in order to stabilize the distribution system. It's well thought out. Then what is it? If we make money by peddling small amounts of goods, there is no problem. But if we want to make a certain amount of money in a business, do we need the Merchants Guild's intermediary in terms of trust? I'd have a problem if I suddenly needed a lot of money, and it seems pretty difficult to get a lot of money in secret. If I want to avoid attracting attention, I'll have to repeat a steady stream of small transactions. May I continue? Oh, yes, please. I shouldn't. The rules seem to be quite different from those over there. So let's make sure I understand the rules themselves before I think about it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. That's all I have to say. Do you have any questions? No, I managed to understand. There are some minor differences, but as long as you follow common sense as a human being, there seems to be no fundamental problem. Now, it's just a matter of how different the way of doing business is from over there. Well, do you mind if I ask you a few questions about business? Yes. No problem. Let's see. There is a big difference between the business I know and the business in this guild. Is that the norm? While I was listening to this explanation, heated business negotiations were happening all around me. If the business negotiations here were normal, I would not have the confidence to continue doing business in this country. Oh, yes. As a newcomer, you must be confused. Don't worry, the merchants' guilds in Toyon are a bit unique. Good, it's unique. I want to tell her that it's not a bit unique. But I'll hold back this time. What is unique? Toyon is the largest port city in the country of Tyne and a key point of multilateral trade. The amount of goods and money it collects is enormous, so it attracts merchants with a lot of ambition. I found out the name of this country unexpectedly. It is called the country of Tyne. The name sounded similar to Toyon, but I wondered if there was a reason for that. Let's leave the name of the country for now. But is Toyon the key to distribution? It is a port city that is not only active in domestic trade but also in foreign trade. So, it makes sense that merchants eager for business would gather there. But, even if they are full of ambition, they don't need to engage in such intense business negotiations, do they? It's on a level that could be mistaken for a fight. The amount of goods and money going in and out of Toyon is enormous. There is no time for slow business negotiations to process and profit from them. In other words, what do you mean? Loud voice and forceful business negotiation are both necessary skills in Toyon. I'm not good at Toyon, but I guess if you want to do big business, Toyon is the way to do it. I'll keep that in mind. I understand. Thank you for your kind explanation. No problem. We look forward to your admission. I'm sorry. Could you please tell me where I can find a reasonably priced inn? For now, let's go to the inn, organize the information here, and discuss it with Dorothea-san and the others. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 16 1720 Chapter 16 I didn't run away. When I arrived in the port city of Toyon and went to the Merchants Guild to get an ID card, I could not join because I did not have enough money to pay the admission fee. The receptionist explained the guild in detail, and I was able to get some information, but I was a little worried about the future. Then it's hard to do big business if you don't open up. The guild gave us some information about inns, and we finally settled on the cheapest one. I shared the information with Dorothea-san and the others, and they seemed to come to the same conclusion as me. If I had just opened up and done business, I could have made a lot of money right away, but considering the Toyan way of doing business and my personality, it was difficult to make the decision to open up easily. I really want to avoid the standard of loud voices and forceful business negotiations or anything like that. Then I guess we'll just have to do a bunch of steady small businesses or sign up with the mercenary guild to make some money. Dorothea-san gave us a rough idea of what to do, and it is true that those two options are promising. With Dorothea-san's talent, there are other ways to make money, but the problem is that they don't understand the language. Aside from business, it's hard to be a mercenary. Huh? Why? Ilma-san's words surprised me. Why? Even if we don't have a full team, it's not like we're taking on high-level requests, so it's possible for us to do it, right? I may not be of much use in battle, but I'm at a high level, and I have the ability to summon ships, so I can at least protect myself. And Dorothea-san and the others should be able to handle requests of a certain difficulty level with ease. I don't know if I should say this myself, but we stand out no matter how we do it. And when we go to a place like the Mercenary Guild, a place where rough people gather, you know what happens, right? That was it. I had been thinking about the business practices of Toyan, but Ilma-san was right. We also had to deal with standing out in this area. Even when we came to this inn, we attracted a lot of attention. We can usually handle most things ourselves, but since we don't understand the language, I don't think we can handle it carelessly. If we leave it to Wataru, the request will be granted, but there will definitely be trouble. Yes, Dorothea-san is right. There will be trouble. In a group of rough mercenaries, there's a guy who doesn't look like much and 3 incredibly beautiful women. And it's me in the middle who looks like nobody. I can assure you, there's no way we wouldn't get into trouble. If that were the case, there would be less trouble if I, a merchant, hired 3 beautiful women as my guards. Even if I did that, I'm sure there would be a lot of envy and jealousy, wondering why such a shabby-looking guy is keeping Dorothea-san and the girls all to himself. Still, there would be less friction between merchants and mercenaries, 2 different genres, than the same mercenary. Then, for the time being, we'll do good business and make money, right? If possible, I want to have enough money. And I want to change my accommodation. I could only afford a cheap place, so this time, I rented a room for 4 people. It would be a treat to sleep in the same room as Dorothea-san and the others, but it's a little hard to include that reward. The room is a shabby room with only 4 beds. It seems to be kept clean to some extent by daily life magic, but it's hard for me, who was spoiled by the ship summoning. And the biggest problem of all is that there is no place for me to release what I am crazy about. I have a room full of things that drive me crazy, but I can't even let them go by myself, which is hell, and I can't wait for an outburst. Yes, and learn the language. Ilma-san, who probably gives me the most trouble, also gave me an extra task: learn the language. Yes, it would be much easier to get around if everyone could understand the language. Normally, it's not easy to learn a foreign language, but everyone is smart enough to do it. They are high level, you know. Still, it's a big adventure on an unknown continent. I was excited about it, but it started modestly. It reminds me of when I first fell into this world. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It's not that I can't eat, but it's hard to keep eating like this. Dorothea-san muttered a bit bitterly after eating yesterday's dinner and today's breakfast. Me, Ilma-san, and Marina-san nodded in agreement. I was not the only one, but Dorothea-san and the others were also spoiled by the ship summoning, so they ate the grilled fish, fish soup, and hard, crumbly bread. There is something difficult about hard, crumbly bread. I understand that it's a cheap inn and the food is accordingly cheap, but that doesn't mean that I want to keep eating it. I ate the food at the inn out of curiosity and to experience the culture of this country, but from now on, I will have to live on my own food. When I can afford it, I will go to a restaurant with a good reputation and experience only the best of the culture. And besides the food, we discovered a troubling problem. Me, Dorothea-san, Ilma-san, and Marina-san, the 3 of us, except for Ilma-san, have one thing in common. Yes, we are all slime lovers. It's not that we're always together, but there are times when we don't see each other for a day because Rima sometimes follows Carla-san on her luxury liner gastronomy tours and stays overnight. However, not seeing each other by chance and not seeing each other for a certain period of time are completely different in terms of feelings. The quality of the beds is not good, the food is not good, and I don't get to have fun with Rima, who is so healing to me. On the second day in Toyon, our tension was low. I want to feel Rimu's softness. Look, don't be lazy just because you're a bit away from Rimu-chan and the others. We're going to exchange money today, right? Dorothea and Marina, you have to be strong. You are Wataru's guards. Ilma-san, who is not dependent on the slime, said devilish things to us, who were filled with sadness. But what Ilma-san says is not wrong. Even if we stay here, we will not be able to meet Rimu, so we should start moving. After exchanging glances with Dorothea-san and Marina-san, we somehow managed to lift our spirits and prepare to leave. By the way, Ilma-san's motherly behavior is fresh. She is charming and mischievous but surprisingly serious at heart. I knew that, but it is a new discovery that she turns into a mother when her surroundings are ruined. It's fun to see a new side of people when they act differently than they usually do. While I was thinking about how I would like to be pampered by Ilma-san one day, we left the inn and went to the Merchants Guild. When I entered the guild, I could hear people shouting at each other and doing business. The guild seems to be full of energy from this morning. I wait for the reception desk to open, just like yesterday. I found the receptionist who gave me a polite explanation yesterday. I want to go to her desk this time because it will save me from having to explain what happened yesterday. Thank you for waiting. How can I help you today? I feel terribly uncomfortable having a male receptionist sitting in front of me. Yesterday, I wanted this situation, but today, I don't want it at all. Even if it wasn't the receptionist who explained the situation to me, I still wanted to talk to another beautiful receptionist. So why was I offered this seat today and not yesterday? Only 2 male employees out of more than 10? Was it a conspiracy of the creator god Sama? I'd like to apply for a change and pay the admission fee to the Merchants Guild with the proceeds. I would like to request a change, but there is no way that it would be granted, and I don't have the courage to ask for it. I took a ruby out of my pocket and placed it in front of the male employee. Oh. Please wait a moment. The male employee puts on gloves and looks at the ruby in his hand. He seems to be able to judge the ruby. It's a pretty good quality ruby, isn't it? Where did you get it? Why do you, a shabbily dressed man, have such a jewel? That's what you want to say, isn't it? I understand. My father got it from the ruins a long time ago. He gave it to me as a down payment when I wanted to become a merchant. A jewel that a mercenary father gave as a parting gift to his son, who was leaving the village to become a merchant. I think I was able to answer the question without hesitation because I had thought about the setting properly beforehand. It would have been a good idea to keep a low profile by repeatedly doing small business. But since I was afraid of doing business in this city and the living environment defeated me overnight, I decided to exchange the jewelry for cash, where I could get a certain amount of money at a time. With this money, I will upgrade our accommodation, and while sightseeing, I will gather information about this city and country and study the language. I see. Do you have any identification? No, I only have the ticket I was given when I entered Toyon. When I showed the ticket, the male employee took the time to check it thoroughly. I don't think there's much to see on the ticket, so he's probably thinking about something while pretending to check it. It's kind of scary. I understand. We'll be willing to pay you 2 million sigs. According to Camille-san's estimate, this ruby is worth 3 million. I don't necessarily know if the price is the same because they're from different continents, not just different countries, but I feel like I'm being ripped off, or, since the price negotiation starts here, it is possible that he offered a lower price. Should I negotiate a slightly higher price? But there is a possibility that 2 million is fair. It is hard to do business without knowledge. I understand. I'll accept it. It's not that I was afraid to negotiate intensely. I was just afraid that I would get too heated in the negotiation and lose my temper. That is not why I ran away. When I was convinced of that, I accepted the employee's price. Very well. Then let's go through the admission process at the same time. Are you sure you want to do that? The staff member looked at me for a moment with such an expression on his face. Apparently, this staff member was not a bad person. He was in charge of a counter in a merchant's guild that was involved in such intense negotiations, so there was no way he would just reveal information to me. The fact that he gave me some time was probably to give the new merchant a chance. And if I didn't take that chance, am I a failure as a merchant? But, well, I can get by with 2 million sigs for now. So I'll just call it good enough for now. I never ran away from it. I just chose to keep a low profile, striving for the luxury liner, Volume 16 Chapter 17 1820 Chapter 17 Sightseeing and Information Gathering. The second day in the port city of Toyan. Although the loneliness of not seeing Rimu almost broke my heart, I gathered my strength and began to take action. I cashed in my jewelry at the Merchant's Guild and managed to increase our activity fund. I have a feeling that I could have increased the activity fund even more if I had tried harder to negotiate a higher price. But I guess it can't be helped. I did not run away at all. I feel like I failed a bit, but I successfully increased the activity fund and got out of the Merchant's Guild. What should we do next? I'm sure we'll gather information as we look around the port city. And while we're at it, let's think about improving the quality of our inn. Among the inns I was told about yesterday, I should check out the ones I gave up on due to lack of funds. Since we still cannot afford luxury, it would be difficult to provide private rooms for everyone, but we would like to at least have separate rooms for men and women. Well, first, let's go sightseeing. Let's gather some information. ******. I walked around the port city of Toyan with Dorothea-san and the others in tow. I don't feel much different from the southern city, but Dorothea-san and the others seem different, and they are talking excitedly in whispers. I want to join in the fun and excitement of the beautiful women, but it is difficult to do so because I can only feel the difference in the way they talk. But I don't think it's because I'm dull. I have learned through sightseeing that my standard is Japan, and everything in this world is a different world, whether it is across the ocean or not. If I were to go to the US or China, I would immediately notice the differences between Japan and the US or China. But if I went to the US, I would not immediately notice the subtle differences between the states. I think it is just like that. I walked around with beautiful women who seemed to be enjoying themselves. Of course, the eyes of the men around me were focused on Dorothea-san and the others. If I had not thought about the danger of getting tangled up and had not acted around the main street, they would definitely have gotten tangled up. And they would have said, "Yone-chan, leave that boring guy alone and come hang out with us." That's the template, right? If I could be an incomparable warrior, I would be willing to create this template, but my personality makes it difficult, and there is no reason to go out of my way to make a fuss and stand out. Let's just ignore the template. As I walked along, thinking about trivial things, I saw a ship in the distance. It seems that we have walked to the dock. The port. I have a feeling the girls might get mixed up with some rough sailors, but it looks like they're busy working and don't have time for that. That would be safe. Should we check the ship as well? We should at least check what kind of treatment the magic ship is getting over here, right? Yes, that's right. Let's check it out, shall we? Dorothea-san and the others seemed to agree, and we went straight to the dock. The dock is a distribution center for the employees of the Merchant's Guild, so it is quite crowded. Even if we don't get caught in the pickup lines, we'll probably get scolded if we get in the way. Let's stay away from the ships and just watch from a distance. The quality of the magic ships seems to be the same, but there are more of them. Even considering the fact that Toyan is the center of logistics, they are incomparable to the ports in Southern City and Lucca. After walking around the port for a while, Dorothea-san shared her impressions. It is true that there are many magic ships, as Dorothea-san said. I often saw magic ships larger than the Lutto, which was rare in the central continent. As expected, there were no ferries or luxury liner-class magic ships stocked, but there were so many that even I could recognize them. I wondered if they still had the technology to build Lutto-class magic ships themselves. Over there, they're only able to build small magic ships, so there might be a considerable technological gap. If we buy magic ships and sell them over there, we can make a lot of money. No, from what I've seen, all the magic engines are pretty worn out. I wonder if there are more magic ships left or unearthed than were manufactured. Ilma-san explains with a researcher's eye. Ilma-san is probably considering different possibilities regarding the magic ship in her mind. But still, is the number of remaining or excavated magic ships large? Could it be that the destruction of civilization was milder than on the central continent? But there were a lot of traces of the continent sinking under the sea before it reached Toyan, weren't there? It seems to me that a lot of things are disconnected. What happened on this continent a long time ago? It's a bit like Atlantis or the continent of Mu, which is fascinating. It's romantic. It looks like we'll be in the way if we go any further, and we need to decide on a place to stay. Should we go back now? Many things intrigue me, but there is still plenty of time to investigate. For now, It was more important to get a private room and get on with daily life without fear of an outburst than to ponder the romance of antiquity. I agree. Shall we return for the day? Dorothea-san nodded her head, so I pulled Ilma-san, who was sinking into a sea of thoughts with me, out of the dock. Wataru. There. As we walked through the city, Marina-san pointed to an alley. No, I think it was more of a side street than an alley. It was a narrow street, but it didn't seem dangerous. What's wrong with that place? Look at the shop in the back. The second shop. Ah, I hadn't noticed because I was only looking at the front. But there's a row of shops in the back. I wondered if they sold anything interesting. The moment I saw the store, I had a gut feeling. If I didn't keep a tight grip on my wallet, it would be a disaster. Ilma-san, wait a minute. I grabbed Ilma-san's arm, which had already started walking towards the shop, and pulled her back. Wataru, what's wrong? Ilma-san looked at me with a look that said, why are you holding me back? I don't understand. I don't know how she feels, but I can't let her go. Ilma-san in a bookstore in an unknown continent is like a carrot dangling from a horse's nose. It will bankrupt us. Ilma, please calm down. Look, we're in a very tight financial situation right now. We can't go over there and buy as much as we want. I'll tell you first, you can only use T300,000 SIGs. Please try to choose the books you need within that amount. And I'll do the negotiating, so let's decide what kind of books you need in advance. On the central continent, it would be possible to buy up an entire bookstore, but we don't have that kind of money here. In fact, even 300,000 SIGs would be hard to come by. But it would be nice to get the information in writing. I guess this is a compromise. I understand. Ilma-san nodded, looking extremely disappointed. If I hadn't stopped her, she probably would have made a big fuss in the bookstore and revealed that we were foreigners. Nice of me to stop her so quickly. After much deliberation, the four of us came to an agreement and headed for the bookstore. Wow, the books seem to be expensive here, too. The books are all used, but each book is neatly arranged, and there is a counter in front of the books, so we are not allowed to take them freely. I guess they have a system where you tell the clerk which book you need and buy it. Welcome. As I entered the bookstore, the clerk looked at me suspiciously. I was definitely out of place. It just feels strange for a person dressed inconspicuously like that in a small village to walk into a bookstore that looks expensive just by looking at it. It would be difficult to clear up the misunderstanding, so let's tell the clerk what we want first. Do you have any easy-to-understand books to help me study letters and history? The books are expensive, you know. Do you have the money? The question was answered by a question, but in this case, it can't be helped. But books are expensive. I had expected it, but when I was confronted with it as a word, I was frightened. I have prepared accordingly, but it is not as if I have the luxury of doing so. I don't care if it's a little tattered, so please give me something inexpensive and with solid content. I decided not to tell the clerk my budget in advance because I didn't want to be forced to buy a defective item to meet the price, although I might feel more comfortable if I told the clerk my budget first. I sincerely hoped that we would not have to haggle over the price. The clerk looked at us and then got up to call someone from the back of the store. The person he called was probably a guard for us. He didn't trust us at all. Even when he looked at me, he just ignored me. But he was watching Dorothea-san and the others closely. Wasn't he? Even though you are suspicious of us, you have a different stomach for beautiful women, don't you? As a fellow human being, I understand your feelings, but please don't do it in this kind of atmosphere. The man who was brought in to watch is also completely ignoring me and concentrating on Dorothea-san and the others. Is that really okay? As I waited while being watched by the new clerk, the first clerk returned after taking out some books. If you want something easy to study, this is it. It's The Wrath of the Dragon, written in simple language. It's for children of the nobility, but everyone knows the story, and it's easy to learn. I don't know, but Wrath of the Dragon seems to be a very famous story. I can't say much about it because I don't know the story, but if it's for kids, it should be okay. Next is this one. Poor Kobold. It's also for noble children but perfect for learning letters. I know it's for noble children, but I find the titles Wrath of the Dragon and Poor Kobolds disturbing. I'm not a fan of depressing stories, but are they okay? Next to these two, one is a rough history of the continent. The other is a detailed history of the continent, but it's for researchers, so you won't be able to read it if you're just starting to study the written word. Normally, I would think so, but Ilma-san would be able to decipher it. As for me, I can't. Even if I could read, I couldn't decipher a researcher's book. How much do they cost? The two children's books are available in several editions, so each book costs 50,000 sig. The history book, the easy one, costs 300,000 sigs, and the researcher's book costs 1,200,000 sigs. They are expensive. The children's book is very flimsy, but it costs 50,000 sig, and only the history book is beyond our budget. I guess I'll have to settle for the two children's books here. Ilma-san gave me a strong look that she also wanted a history book, but I ignored her this time. The budget for the two children's books and a rough history book alone is over 200,000 yen. It is difficult to buy them under the present circumstances. Two children's books, please. Ilma-san, please don't look sad. I will give you a gift when the budget increases, so please be patient this time. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 18, 1920. Chapter 18, True Story. After securing additional funds, we walked around the port city of Toyon and observed some of the cultures of the area. Then we bought two picture books to learn the written and spoken language. I also originally wanted a history book, but it was expensive. Poor kobolds. Once upon a time, there was a very peaceful kobold village. The kobolds lived happily every day, working in the fields, hunting, and taking care of the dragons that occasionally returned to the mountains. Suddenly, a nightmare attacked this peaceful village. Bad guys attacked them. Wrath of the Dragon. Once upon a time, there was a great dragon that ruled the earth. The dragon's job was to see the land around the world. Such a serious dragon had a favorite place to live. When the dragon finished his work, he would return to his home. He looks forward to contact with the kobolds who take good care of him and his family. It has been a month since I bought the picture book. Although there have been some small events in my life in an unfamiliar place, I have been able to enjoy a peaceful daily life surrounded by beautiful women who live on the ground. Every day, I read picture books to them while following the characters, and when that is over, we go out into the city to study and translate daily conversations. Occasionally, I leave the city and return to Chateau to teach Ins, Felicia, Alessia-san, and others the language by giving them picture books that I have translated. These are peaceful days. Their studies are going well. Dorothea-san and Marina-san have also made an amazing achievement in just 1 month. They have mastered listening comprehension and simple conversation in everyday conversation, though only partially. Ilma-san, who was very confident in her language learning, has almost mastered everyday conversation and is now able to converse fluently. For someone like me who was born in Japan, it was extraordinary to be able to master an unknown language in 1 month, but maybe there were other geniuses like her in Japan that I just didn't know about. Following Marina-san's instructions, I went to various places to eavesdrop, or rather, to learn the language, and as a result, I was able to gather a certain amount of information. The land where we are now is definitely the continent that was written in the documents of the Duke's castle. There are several countries on this continent, including small countries. There are also countries that are separated from this continent to the north and south of this continent. There are more ancient ruins on this continent than on the central continent. The strength of the monsters is not so different from the central continent, and it depends on the location. In particular, it is said that strong monsters often live in ruins. Ruins are managed by the government or guilds, but since they are not dungeons, they seem to be neglected except for management to prevent monsters from living in them after the excavation is finished. And most of the ruins and places where people can easily enter have already been explored. We have learned many things. One of the most important pieces of information is that the picture book was not a made-up story. Of course, not all of them are true, and some of them are adapted for children, but it seems that a large percentage of them are true, perhaps for the purpose of studying history. And it is a series of stories, a fantasy epic that goes from poor kobold to the wrath of the dragon. The story is about a man, or a country, who steals into a dragon's lair in search of dragon materials and treasures. They get a lot of materials and treasures. On their way back, they discover a village of kobolds. They attack and rob the village. The dragon returns home. Naturally, he is furious. While rescuing his favorite kobolds, he lays waste to the country where the kobolds were kidnapped. Still angry, The dragon finally tore the continent apart and attacked the eastern part of the continent, where the country that did the foolish thing was located. Eventually, the eastern part of the continent was sunk. Finally calmed down, the dragon returns with the saved kobolds to the place where he used to live, which is also cut off from the continent, and locks himself in with a barrier. The dragon lives happily ever after. It's not that happy, is it? Obviously, poor kobolds and Wrath of the Dragon were not picture books to entertain children but to instill the horror of dragons in them from an early age. Well, that is understandable. There were probably many people in the eastern part of the continent who had nothing to do with the incident. But the dragons did not care about them, and they were destroyed. They probably wanted to avoid disturbing such a dangerous existence. Because the continent was divided into 5 parts, and one of them sank. It would have been unfortunate if they had offended it. When we found out that the story in the picture book was true, we were amazed. The huge craters we saw under the sea before arriving at Toyan were the work of an earth dragon, and the island where we spent the night without being able to land because of the barrier was the home of an earth dragon. We had spent the night next to an incredible landmine without knowing it. It would be too scary. I thought the sunken land was the work of a reincarnated person or a demon king, but in fact, it was the work of a dragon, and it seems that the dragon still exists. It makes me want to go home. Wataru. The chateau is coming into view. While I was sitting in the living room of the Lutto, remembering everything that had happened since I came to Toyan, Dorothea-san came to tell me that the chateau was in sight. Is it the first chateau in a week? I wonder if everyone is okay? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Now we will hold a meeting to decide our future course of action. The day after returning to the chateau, playing with Rimu and Pent as much as I wanted, and spending the night to the fullest with Inz and Felicia, a meeting led by Dorothea-san began. Now that we were somewhat used to the language, it was time to get serious. Well, it was more of a tea party than a meeting since we were all gathered in my room, and there were plenty of drinks and snacks available. After all, we're adventurers, so isn't it best to look for ruins that haven't been destroyed? Alessia-san seemed to want to go on a treasure hunt. That's not a bad idea since we can work in places that are normally inaccessible to most people. However, we have a huge surplus of treasure, so I don't think it's a bad idea to get more. I would love to have more money to spend in this country, but with the ruins, I feel like we might get something that's hard to exchange for cash again and be stuck with it. If we were to find some ruins that hadn't been destroyed, wouldn't that cause a fuss again? Claretta-san has a point. If it became known that we had discovered the ruins, wouldn't the country and the guilds keep quiet? We could search for them in a place where no one but us can get to them. If we keep quiet, they will never know. Alessia-san doesn't seem to be after treasure or honor, she just wants pure adventure. Inz seems to share the same opinion, and they both cackle with glee. It's a sight for sore eyes. I'd like to visit other countries, the north and south of the continent. That was Ilma-san's opinion. Of course, she is interested in the ruins but also curious about foreign cultures. After that, various opinions were expressed, but no one wanted to bring up the subject of Dragon Island. Everyone seemed to pretend that they had never heard of it. As one would expect from first-rate adventurers, they seemed to have the good sense to stay away from dangers beyond their control. It was the right decision. After all, no one wants to get close to a monster that could tear the continent apart, right? Well, for the time being, we will travel around this continent, repeating small businesses, and if we find a place where we think there might be ruins, we will explore it. Later we will consider the northern and southern parts of the continent. As a result of the meeting, we decided to follow the policy that Dorothea-san had outlined. Since we will also be discovering ruins, we will be traveling on land instead of sea for the first time in a long time. I'm worried that it will be difficult to use the ship summoning, but I'm sure it will be fun. Now that we have a plan, let's get ready for the journey. Pack your things and let's go. First, we need to register with the Mercenary Guild in Toyan. Alessia-san is very excited to finally set foot on the continent. Carla-san, Claretta-san, Inz, and Felicia also looked happy, and I think they all wanted to visit Toyan. Joining the Mercenary Guild, huh? Everyone has learned the bare minimum of the language, and since we're going to be traveling, it would definitely be more convenient to have an identification card. But there will definitely be a fuss. This time, I'm repatriating the chateau, so we'll have a full crew. The 8 beautiful women alone are sure to get us into trouble, and now we'll be joined by Rimmer and the others and Pent. There's no way we won't make a scene. In fact, it makes me cry that it was already confirmed that there would be a commotion if we brought Pent along. Well, we can't leave Pent at sea, and since we're going on a trip as soon as we get an identification card, I don't mind a little commotion, but we just have to be careful not to become a wanted person. I feel like praying to God, but I don't want to pray because I think it would add to the commotion. Excuse me. Arriving at the port city of Toyan, I called the gatekeeper. What is it? I have a familiar. Is it a problem if I bring him into the city? The slime on your head? It is not normal slime, but if it is slime, it is fine. But you have to make sure that you register your familiar properly. Rimmer seems to be fine, although Rimmer is strong enough to stand up to any of those mercenaries. He looks so cute that people don't seem to be alarmed by his appearance. No, not just this kid, but 2 more slimes and… Oh, if there's slime, that's fine. Before I can finish, the gatekeeper sees the slime on Dorothea-san and Marina-san's shoulders and gives me permission to enter. I can see that he is paying attention to Dorothea-san and the others, and in a way, I feel sorry for him. No, I let him wait at a distance so as not to cause a commotion, but he is a sea serpent. He's young, but he's big in his own way. I thought about not letting Pent into Toyan, but I decided to take him because I really wanted to register him as a familiar and get his familiar certificate. First, I have to successfully convince the gatekeeper, who looks at me like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I wondered if I would be able to make it to the destination safely. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 19 2020 Chapter 19 Mercenary Guild. Although we were shocked to learn that the picture book we bought to learn the language was a true story and that the country had been destroyed and parts of the continent had sunk, we managed to gather information and learn the minimum amount of language in about a month. Now, all we had to do was take action. First, I had to get the women's identification cards. Can you say that again? I was concentrating on something else and missed it. What are you keeping me waiting for? The gatekeeper asks again with a look of this can't be true. Beautiful women of Dorothea-san's class are rare even in this world, so it's understandable that he's so focused on her. But please don't miss the most important part. It took a lot of courage to say those words. A baby sea serpent. No, he's growing up. It's probably a sea serpent's child. I think it is. Are you kidding? I'm serious. Or maybe it's not a sea serpent, but a sea snake from around here? I see. I thought the gatekeeper was asking a strange question, but a sea serpent is not a common occurrence. I could understand why he was suspicious. His gaze became strangely soft, and I guessed that he equated it with a child catching a lizard and making a fuss about it being a dragon. Perhaps he thinks he is telling me that what you have caught is not a sea serpent but a sea snake. That's a terrible insult. No, it's definitely a sea serpent. Can I call it over? Well, okay. You can call it then, but you'll have to pull over to the side because of the line. I got a very throwaway answer. Perhaps he thought that since it had become inconvenient, he would confront me with the reality of the situation by seeing the actual thing. But it is the gatekeeper who will see the reality. I waved my hand in the direction of where Alessia-san and the others were waiting. If we wait a little longer, they will come. After a short stop at the edge of the gate, Alessia-san and the others joined us with Pent. At the same time, many soldiers came out of the gate and surrounded us. Oh, come on, that's impossible. Is he really the child of the sea serpent? The gatekeeper asked in a panic. We hadn't expected to be surrounded by soldiers, but the panic was expected and a bit amusing. I told you he was a sea serpent, didn't I? I told him in advance, and he gave me permission to bring Pent here, so there's nothing to be ashamed of. No, but that doesn't mean you can really tame a sea serpent. They are third-class monsters when they are adults, so how did you manage to tame it? I remember that here, monsters are not ranked, they are classified. The third class is the third from the top. If we consider S rank to be the first class, does that mean that the third class is B rank? The central continent treats it as an A rank, but the standard seems to be slightly different. I found this wounded boy, so I treated him and gave him food, and he became friendly with me. In truth, he had hatched from an egg and threatened me, but Tremu beat him up and made him his younger brother. As you can imagine, I can't say that. No, it's not like you're a kid who found a small animal, You're dealing with a monster, you know. Don't look at me with the eyes of someone who is abnormal. It was Rimmer who made him his younger brother. We've become emotionally attached, so it can't be helped, can it? So can I come in? I want them to give me permission as soon as possible because I'm afraid I'll lose my nerve if I'm questioned too much. Even though Pent can live on land, he is a sea creature, you know. I should take him to the ocean later or let him bathe in a rubber boat filled with seawater. No, huh? How about it? Can we let it through? Wait a second. Don't make any bad moves. You guys keep a good lookout too. After that, the gatekeeper went into the gate. He was probably going to ask for instructions. Surrounded by soldiers, I endured a subtle, awkward silence, and then the gatekeeper brought out a man with fine equipment. Is he in charge of this gate? No way. It is really a sea serpent. The man who seemed to be in charge of the gate saw Pent was speechless. Can he come in? I said to the man in charge, who was speechless. It is hard for me to stay here because I am surrounded as if I am a dangerous person, and I keep attracting the attention of the soldiers and people lined up at the gate. We are all here because we plan to leave Toyan soon, so we are all prepared to stand out. But that doesn't mean I have the mental capacity to do so with impunity while basking in all the attention. No. We can't let you in until we know it's safe. Well, that's true. I know there are some people who tame high-level monsters, but those people are usually famous, and that alone guarantees a certain level of safety. But in my case, it's difficult. I've heard that I don't look strong, and I'm wearing ordinary clothes. But I'm leading a group of beautiful women, a slime, and a sea serpent. It just doesn't make sense. Can I show that this child will follow my instructions? Oh, if you make it clear, not vague, that he's being tamed, I'll give you permission. He says clearly, so I guess it can't be something like, he won't bite me if I pat him on the head. I wonder if he would be convinced if I showed him the instructions that I happen to know when I play with him. Let's try it anyway. Pent, turn right. Pent slowly turns to the right. Oh, Rimmer, you have to be quiet now. It won't work if you play with Pent. If Rimmer transforms and flies away, the problem will become very big, so I hold him down as if patting him when he starts playing above my head. Pent, reverse rotation. Pent, wrap me in a circle. How about that? I ask the person in charge as Pent traps around me. It's a simple move, but you wouldn't think Pent wasn't tamed by it. That should work. Why don't you join the Navy? I was kind of scouted. It's completely understandable that they want Pent, but it's not a bad feeling to be needed. But, well, I can't join the military. It's just too scary. No, I'm a merchant, so the Navy is a bit. Well, when you feel up to it, just let me know. You'll be very welcome. Ha ha ha. Thank you. Hey. Go with them and make sure there's no trouble. There seems to be a soldier accompanying us. It's definitely a lookout, but it would be nice to have a soldier on our side so that we don't have to worry about unnecessary trouble. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. After successfully completing the formalities for Alessia-san and the others, we arrived at the mercenary guild and attracted a lot of attention. Since the soldiers were with us, we didn't run into anyone and didn't cause a ruckus because of Pent's presence. But I feel sorry for Alessia-san and the others who were so excited about their first time in the city that they couldn't speak up. Once inside, all eyes were on us at once. Yes, it's like a gala. The sight of a group of beautiful women in Pent caused a stir in the guild. I guess all eyes are on the beautiful women in Pent, because the gaze that had been on me for a while has completely disappeared. Clank. I looked in the direction of the noise and saw a man standing up in the bar, looking at us. Wow. He's definitely coming this way. If someone's going to bother us, they should have done it after we got our identification cards, or at least not set up a bar inside the guild like the Adventurers Guild did. A good guy, would get involved. Oh, his drinking companion prevented him from getting up, despite his ugly appearance. He sounds like a good man. And it seems that he stopped because of the soldier's presence. Thank you, Soldier-san. Still, I think it's worse than the Adventurers Guild over there. Although the guild includes treasure hunters, it is an organization that also deals with mercenaries and war, so maybe the atmosphere is a bit more deadly. While I was gathering information, I thought it might be a good idea to get the identification cards of Dorothea-san and the others first, so I suggested that we go to the Mercenary Guild. We wanted to register quietly one by one to keep a low profile, but in this atmosphere, it would definitely have had the opposite effect. Marina-san said it was better to stay away from this place because she must have been aware of the bad atmosphere here during her personal activities. Thank goodness for the scout positions. Now, let's sign up quickly before there are any irregularities. We went to the counter and thanked the soldier for acting as a good luck charm and attracting attention at the same time. This time, we thought we would stand out because we were ready to run away from Toyan, but we were really lucky to have the soldier with us. Yes, the ladies at the counter are all beautiful women, as they should be. Even across the ocean, the nature of men doesn't change. Does it? Well, it doesn't matter to me now whether they are beautiful women or not. I don't have the ability or the courage to talk to the ladies with my nose up in the air. Excuse me. Please register this slime and sea serpent child as a familiar. I request the registration of Rimmer and Pent as my familiars. Sea serpent. You understood. The lady at the reception desk has a very drawn look on her face. Maybe she doesn't like snakes. No, it's bigger than a python, so even if she wasn't afraid of snakes, she would still be afraid of Pent. Please present your guild card and fill out this form. Oh, can you write? Come to think of it, I only have the Merchant's Guild card. Huh? Do I have to join the Mercenary Guild as well? I only have the Merchant's Guild card. Is that okay? Yes, it's fine, but... The lady at the reception desk seems to be having a terrible time talking to me. Is there a problem? Is something wrong? Yes, the sins of the familiar are the sins of the master. The slime over there is no problem, but if you can't control that sea serpent over there, you'll be in big trouble. With all due respect, I think it would be quite dangerous for you, a merchant. She was worried about the damage the sea serpent would cause. Thank you for your kindness. This time, I brought him to the Mercenary Guild to register him as my familiar, but I usually let him live at sea, so there is no need to worry about him causing any damage. You can rest assured. Is that so? In the case of familiars, if it's contracted, I can't say for sure from here, but you really need to be careful, especially make sure it doesn't attack boats or anything like that. Also, if you find that you can't handle it, don't release it, but contact the Mercenary Guild, even if it's painful. She looks very worried but seems willing to sign me up even if she's concerned about whether it's within her personal responsibility. She looks very anxious, though. Still, why am I taking more time when Alessia-san and the others can register with the Mercenary Guild right next to me? I wanted to follow up with them and give them shares when they register, but it's too hard because it's so different from what I planned. Striving for the Luxury Liner, Volume 16 Chapter 20. Enjoy. Chapter 20. Smart Solution. We all arrived at the port city of Toyan with Alessia-san and the others. As we expected, we got into a scuffle at the gate, but it was decided that a soldier would accompany us. When we entered the Mercenary Guild to get our identification cards, we attracted the attention of some rude men, but thanks to the soldier, the registration process was completed peacefully. They're following us, aren't they? What are they up to? It took some time to register the familiars, but the other members completed their registration without any problems, and we were able to leave the Mercenary Guild without any problems. I was able to get a marker to prove that the Slimes and Pent were our familiars, and I think our visit to the Mercenary Guild, which I had prepared for some trouble, ended with the best possible outcome. Inside the Mercenary Guild, we left the Mercenary Guild and went to the Merchant Guild, but they were following us so blatantly that even a layman like me could see it. It seems that they have no intention of hiding the fact that they are following us, and they are following us happily. I looked around and saw some people with liquor bottles in their hands, and to be honest, it was very scary. The soldier who was supposed to leave us after we registered with the Mercenary Guild was in such a worried mood that he said the situation would surely cause a commotion and that he would continue to accompany us because these people were the ones who needed to be watched for bad behavior. They must be planning to get involved if the soldier leaves, or they must want to know where we are going to stay. To my words, Alma-san answers in the language of this continent in a fluent tone. I think the fluency of the language is wonderful, but I am sad to say that the content seems like a hassle. When a soldier leaves us, there will definitely be a series of templates. I don't think for a second that those people have anything to do with IMS, Felicia, Alessia-san, and the others. But I'm sure I'll be ignored, abused, and disturbed. Soldier-san, can't you do something about those people back there? They're the ones who need to be watched, right? They're just walking down the street right now. The soldier answers my words with a worried look. Well, Yes, it would be difficult to catch them just walking down the street, no matter how bad they look or whether they are a person of interest or not. If we told them not to follow us, they would just say they didn't, and that would be the end of it. What do you think will happen if this goes on? I think they'll give up if we stay at a fancy inn, but at an ordinary inn these guys will try to stay with us. You understand the rest, don't you? The soldier's eyes say so. It is sad that I understand too much. And I don't have enough money in my purse to stay in a fancy inn. The soldier would not stay with us forever, and we had to decide quickly what to do. The safest thing to do would be to go with the soldier to the gate and continue our journey. This option is not a problem because we decided before we came to Toyon that if we were in trouble, we would leave the same day. However, I am sorry that Alessia-san and the others who visited Toyon for the first time today will not be able to do much sightseeing. The next option is to cash in our treasures at the Merchants Guild for a hefty sum of money and stay at a luxury inn to work through the problem. We might be able to get by in Toyon, but a merchant, beautiful women in slime and sea serpents who have just registered with the Merchants Guild and the Mercenaries Guild are cashing in their treasures. It is just a matter of concern. It won't be the end of the world if we escape Toyon, and the information will spread to the merchant and mercenary guilds everywhere. This option is not impossible, but it is not a safe one. The last option I can think of right now. To let the soldiers go and round up the whole mess. Hopefully, we can afford to go to Toyon today or tomorrow. But it'll be a bit of a mess. I'll have to talk to everyone when we get to the Merchants Guild. *****. That sounds interesting. After cashing in the small gems back at the guild and receiving a few pitiful looks, I explained the plan I had just thought of, and Alessia-san agreed with me, looking very happy. But do you think they will attack us? Even dressed like this, we are at a high level. If they had any experience in combat, they would at least be wary of someone they can't let down. I wondered if Dorothea-san would be able to do that well. I'm not so sure. If the opponent has some skill, they might be able to see the true nature of the enemy without being fooled by their equipment. But the men who followed us were mercenaries who drank alcohol during the day and were careless enough to follow us without hiding themselves. It is hard to believe that they have the eyes to see the strength of such an enemy. Even if they had the ability to see through the enemy, I don't think they would be able to show it under the current circumstances. All right, if the soldier is willing to cooperate, let's give it a try. Even if we fail, we just have to continue our journey, so let's take it easy. After listening to my explanation, Alessia-san made a decision. She was eager to try it, and it had been a long time since she had done anything rough, so she seemed to be having a lot of fun. After making a decision, I went to the soldier waiting at the entrance of the Merchants Guild to ask him about it. If he says we can't do it, then we'll just go on our way. I see. As for us, we can try to tighten up those with bad behavior, and it is not a bad idea since we can get fines and work. However, we can only detain them for a few days if it is just a fight. After that, they could be in trouble, you know? It was not a bad suggestion for the soldier. He said these people were ruffians and a person to watch out for, so I guess it was a good thing for him. We're leaving the day after tomorrow, so it's enough if we don't get into any trouble before then. Even though they are a bad-looking and troublesome person, I don't want to ask for such a severe punishment for someone I have almost nothing to do with, and even if we catch them all, it doesn't mean that the number of people who will get involved with us will be reduced to zero. It would be better to let them cool off in jail for a few days and lose a little money in labor, fines, and so on. If that's the case, we have no problem with it. The captain will be happy, too. After a detailed discussion with the soldier, who nodded in satisfaction, we decided to wait at the Merchant Guild. But security is still important, isn't it? At the Mercenaries Guild, I was worried that we might get mixed up with the bad guys, but at the Merchants Guild, there is no sign of us getting mixed up, although they are looking at us with interest. Well, there are some merchants who are giving Alessia-san and Pent hot looks, but you can't help it if you're a man. I was with the soldier, and they didn't talk to me, but that was enough to make me feel safe. Shall we go? After waiting about an hour for the soldier to get ready, we left the guild. It would have been a waste of time if those men were gone now, but there was a man watching us in the shadows outside the Merchant Guild. It seems that it would not be a waste of time. I thought we'd get caught right away, but it seems they don't have the guts to do it right in front of the merchant guild. I quickly walked to the place the soldier told me about. It is a place where prices are low and security is a bit low. In other words, it is easy to be attacked. But since there are cheap accommodations next to it, it is hard to be suspected of being a trap even if we go there. When you enter a street with few pedestrians, you will see a small square at the end of the street. The soldier told me that if a large group of people were to get mixed up, it would be in this square. Just as we are about to enter the square, we hear the sound of many footsteps behind us. Amazingly, the soldier's prediction was correct. It seems that the soldiers in Toyon are quite good, as it is a base for maritime trade. As we enter the square, we are surrounded by men who have been following us. What's wrong with you people? I let go of the line I had prepared, as close to the truth as possible. You're not important, so just be quiet. If you do anything unnecessary with that snake, I'll kill you. I was quite sad that I wasn't taken seriously, even though I had expected it. Woohoo. I knew these women were good. Wow, I've never seen so many beautiful women here. Cuckoo. Hey, girls, as senior mercenaries, we'll take care of you. Oh, we'll take good care of you, even in bed. So you should be grateful. Wow. It's sad that I can sympathize with them a little bit because they are so honest about their desires. I also want to take good care of them, even in bed. I think so, but I pretend to freeze as if frightened. Alessia-san and the others change their position to surround me. Oh, so you're just going to be the bodyguard, huh? Gahaha, then at least pull out your weapons. No, you'll only get hurt if you pull out your weapons, so it's probably a good idea. Gahaha. The mercenaries, probably imagining something or other with a group of beautiful women, are very excited. What? I don't want to be taken care of by you guys. Ilma-san is scared but pretends to be defiant. Yes, this time, the plan was to get the weak novice mercenary out of harm's way. Soldier-san, help us quickly. So, everyone pretends to be afraid. It sounds like the title of an adult movie, but let's not worry too much about the name of the mission. They seem to enjoy the unusual style, and when I explained the plan to them, they were in a great mood and acted like actresses. Maybe they like acting like girls. But I'm just an heir. Kaya, let go of me. Ilma-san's arm was grabbed, but the guy seemed to be reaching for her chest. She probably pretended to be grabbed by letting his arm in so that it wouldn't be unnatural. There seemed to be quite a bit of room, and there must be a considerable difference in their abilities. Kaya, someone help me. Hey, I'll take good care of you. So be quiet. Wow, I don't know how men can get so sloppy when an erotic scene is right in front of them. If I'm not careful, I'm going to make a face like that. After all, it's the right thing to be a quiet man. I should at least try to look good. While I was trying to correct my own behavior by watching others, I heard the sound of many footsteps coming from the passage we had entered. The men were so busy with Ins, Felicia, Alessia-san, and the others that they didn't even notice them. Aren't they too careless? Help! Seize them! Alessia-san's cries signaled the soldiers, who pounced on the careless ruffians. None of the women were taken hostage, and the ruffians were easily subdued. They all said they were being set up, but the soldiers knew exactly what was going on and recognized them as people to be on the lookout for, so they were squeezed until the last minute. I feel like this time, I've been able to handle the trouble in a very smart way. Maybe I grew up a little bit,